The soft glow of early morning stretched across the Nile, spilling pale golden light over the still waters. A gentle mist hovered above the river, delicate and thin, almost like a whispered promise of another quiet day. The air was calm, cool in the shade of the date palms, and soft sounds drifted slowly. The faint rustle of papyrus leaves, the distant murmur of water against the riverbank, and the quiet footsteps of those who walked along the banks to begin their work. In the heart of this gentle land, the pharaoh rested in a palace built of pale limestone, walls smoothed by time and sun. The rooms were large and cool, designed to capture the slow flow of air and the soft shadows of the morning. Inside, tapestries hung lightly, muted colors of blue, green, and ochre that seemed to absorb the quiet around them. Each corner, each stone had been chosen not just for beauty, but for a sense of calm and order. The pharaoh, still wrapped in the gentle folds of sleep, stirred as the first rays of sun touched the room. There was no sudden awakening here, no abrupt change. The world outside moved slowly, and so did the world within the palace. A servant approached quietly, carrying a small vessel of cool water scented with lotus petals. The pharaoh's eyes opened to the soft fragrance, and the day began without urgency, as if the morning itself had paused just for this gentle awakening. Outside, the palace gardens were already alive with quiet activity. Birds moved in careful arcs among the flowering shrubs, their calls light and steady. Workers tended to small patches of herbs and vegetables, their hands moving with deliberate care, turning the soil, watering slowly, listening to the soft sounds of the morning. Even the animals moved with an unhurried rhythm. Goats grazed calmly in the distant fields, and the waterfowl drifted along the Nile in measured patterns. The day unfolded in quiet routines. The pharaoh's morning began with a slow walk through the inner gardens. The cool stone pathways, polished smooth over time, felt gentle underfoot. Each plant, each flower was attended to with a soft hand, a touch that seemed to honor the slow passing of life. The lotus pond reflected the sky with a serene clarity, broken only by the faint ripple of a passing breeze. Meals were simple and deliberate. Bread made from carefully ground grains, soft and warm, sweetened lightly with honey. Fresh fruit, sliced and arranged with a quiet care that made eating feel like a ritual rather than a necessity. The taste was gentle, the textures soft, the sounds of chewing almost swallowed by the calm of the palace walls. Everything existed in balance, a rhythm that spoke not of grand events, but of quiet presence. Evenings arrived softly. The sun sank slowly, turning the sky a warm, muted amber. Shadows stretched across the palace halls, long and serene, settling into corners like a familiar, comforting blanket. Lamps flickered softly, casting golden pools of light over stone floors. The pharaoh rested in a chair near the open windows, listening to the distant sounds of the river. Occasionally, a breeze carried the faint scent of mud, reeds, and the distant flowering fields. It was a world that moved slowly, perfectly attuned to the gentle heartbeat of the land. And so the day passed, slowly, quietly, without hurry. Each moment held its own gentle rhythm, its own quiet presence. The pharaoh's life, though marked by responsibility and attention, was woven into the calm fabric of the land itself. And as sleep deepened, it felt as though the palace, the gardens, and even the flowing Nile were breathing in harmony, a world designed to nurture rest and quiet reflection. The morning light slowly shifted, painting the palace walls in pale shades of cream and soft gold. The air was still, carrying the faint warmth of the sun as it climbed higher, brushing gently against the stone terraces. Inside, the pharaoh's attendants moved quietly, their steps measured and careful. There was no rush here, only the soft rhythm of a household in harmony with itself. In one chamber, a small fire burned low, sending faint wisps of fragrant smoke curling upward. Sandalwood and dried herbs lent the room a comforting scent, grounding the quiet of the morning. The pharaoh, already awake, sat upon a low cushioned bench, draped in linens of muted ivory. A servant approached with a small bowl of cool milk, slightly sweetened with date syrup, and placed it carefully on a carved wooden stand. The pharaoh took it slowly, feeling the coolness on the tongue and the subtle sweetness settle in the mouth, each sip a gentle anchor to the present moment. Beyond the walls, the gardens were awakening to another day. Bees hummed softly among the flowering shrubs, moving in slow, purposeful arcs. The breeze, faint but persistent, stirred the leaves, creating a gentle whispering that blended with the occasional splash of water from the irrigation channels. Workers carried clay jars to the plants, releasing water in careful streams, ensuring each root received its quiet portion. The sound of water mingled with the bird song, a soft symphony of small natural motions. The pharaoh often enjoyed a slow walk along the palace corridors at this hour. The floors were smooth limestone, warmed slightly by the early sun. Torches, still smoldering from the night, cast soft shadows along the walls. Murals depicting past rulers and quiet scenes of life along the Nile stretched across the chambers, their colors softened by years of sun and time. Each image told a story, not of grand battles or loud celebrations, but of daily life, the planting, the harvesting, the gentle passage of seasons. The midday meal followed a gentle rhythm. Fish, caught earlier from the Nile, was prepared simply, seasoned with mild herbs and served alongside soft bread and lentils. Fresh vegetables from the gardens were offered with care, their colors muted but rich, their textures soft. The pharaoh ate slowly, savoring each bite, aware of the quiet motions of those around. Even the clink of utensils and the rustle of linen seemed to participate in the stillness, a soft chorus of everyday life. After the meal, the palace often settled into a tranquil lull. The heat of the day pressed lightly against the walls, and the shaded chambers offered refuge. The pharaoh sometimes reclined on cushions near open windows, watching as the Nile glimmered in soft waves, small boats drifting lazily along its surface. The river carried the sounds of distant voices, the gentle splash of oars, the soft cry of water birds, a gentle music that filled the day without haste. Occasionally, small delegations arrived from nearby villages, bringing reports or gifts of fruit, woven mats, or pottery. These visitors were received with quiet dignity, sitting on low benches in the outer halls. Conversations moved slowly, voices even and calm, as though aware of the overall rhythm of the palace. The pharaoh listened with patience, nodding gently, each word absorbed with quiet attention. There was no urgency here, only the steady, unhurried pulse of life. As afternoon slowly gave way to evening, shadows lengthened along the palace terraces. The warm sunlight softened into muted amber, drifting lazily across the gardens. The lotus flowers in the ponds opened slightly wider, releasing a subtle fragrance that mingled with the cool breeze. Servants began lighting small lamps along the hallways, the flickering light casting gentle patterns across the stone floors. Each step, each movement was slow, deliberate, measured, blending seamlessly into the tranquil atmosphere. The pharaoh often spent these hours observing the work of the artisans. Potters shaped clay with soft, steady hands, the wheel spinning in a gentle, hypnotic rhythm. Weavers moved their fingers across threads, producing textiles in muted tones that reflected the calm of the surroundings. Even the faint tapping of small hammers on bronze or the delicate scraping of stone carvings seemed to fall into the soft, quiet rhythm of the evening. Every motion, every sound felt deliberate, considered, and at peace. Night approached gradually. The sky shifted through shades of deep amber and soft purple, the first stars appearing quietly above the horizon. The Nile mirrored the colors of the heavens, its surface calm and reflective. In the palace, curtains were drawn gently, and soft rugs were spread across stone floors. The pharaoh retired to a quiet chamber, the linens cool and comforting, the sounds of the river and the distant reeds providing a natural lullaby. And so the day concluded. There were no loud celebrations, no sudden events, only the continuous, slow rhythm of life. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the distant fields all moved together in harmony, a gentle, comforting world designed for rest and quiet presence. Outside, the stars continued their silent journey, reflecting softly in the waters of the Nile, carrying the day into night and the night into dreams. Night had settled more fully across the Nile Valley, and the world outside the palace grew hushed. The air was cool, carrying faint whispers from the river and the distant reeds swaying softly in the gentle breeze. Shadows deepened along the walls, stretching into every corner, and the palace seemed to exhale, sinking into a quiet stillness that felt as if time itself had slowed. Inside, the pharaoh moved slowly through the private chambers. Each room was carefully arranged to reflect simplicity and calm, with soft cushions and woven mats providing gentle comfort. Small clay lamps were lit along the walls, their flames dancing softly, casting golden pools of light that shimmered across the stone floors. The glow was steady, warm, and unobtrusive, creating a sanctuary where the world outside could fade away. Before retiring fully, the pharaoh often attended to personal rituals that were as quiet as the night itself. A basin of cool water, scented faintly with lotus petals, sat on a low stone stand. Hands were washed slowly, deliberately, each movement mindful and calm. The water ran gently, and its sound seemed amplified in the stillness, a soft rhythm that matched the steady beating of the heart. Cloths were dried with care, the touch of soft linen grounding each motion. Afterward, a simple meal was sometimes enjoyed, though smaller than the midday repast. Fresh dates, soft and sweet, were arranged carefully on a small plate. Pieces of cheese, made from the milk of goats that grazed along the riverbanks, were cut into neat slices. The pharaoh ate slowly, aware of the texture and the subtle flavors, allowing the mind to remain present in the quiet, deliberate motions. Even eating became an exercise in calm, a way to honor the slow passage of the evening. The private gardens offered another retreat. A narrow terrace opened onto a small courtyard filled with flowering shrubs, low palms, and a gentle fountain. The sound of trickling water added to the soft orchestra of the night, the occasional croak of frogs, the rustle of leaves, and the distant murmur of the river. Here the pharaoh could walk slowly, feeling the warm stones beneath bare feet, pausing to inhale the delicate fragrances of the night-blooming flowers. Each step was deliberate, each breath unhurried, a meditation in motion. Sometimes the pharaoh engaged with texts and scrolls. Papyri lay carefully unrolled on low wooden stands, filled with gentle inscriptions about the world, the land, and the lives of ancestors. The words were read quietly, almost whispered to oneself. Their inked lines moved slowly across the eyes, carrying tales not of grandeur, but of routine, of labor, of careful attention to daily life. In this practice, there was no urgency, only the peaceful continuity of thought and reflection. Music, too, had its quiet place in the night. A lyre, softly strummed by a skilled hand, produced notes that lingered gently in the air. The melody was slow and steady, weaving through the chamber like a calm current. The pharaoh listened, allowing the sound to fill the spaces of the mind, letting each vibration sink into the soft stillness that enveloped the palace. Even the faintest hiss of strings seemed to encourage a slower heartbeat, a slower breathing, a deeper calm. Outside, the river mirrored the deepening night sky. The stars reflected faintly in its waters, tiny points of light rippling with the gentle flow. Occasionally, a small boat drifted silently along the current, its presence barely disturbing the calm surface. The fields beyond the palace were quiet now, the animals resting, the crops still, all moving in harmony with the gentle rhythm of the natural world. As midnight approached, the pharaoh prepared for sleep. The chambers were dimmed further, lamps extinguished one by one, leaving only the soft glow of the moonlight spilling through open windows. Linen sheets were drawn up slowly, tucked with care, embracing the body like a quiet whisper. The air carried a faint warmth of the day that lingered, gentle against the skin, while the faintest chill of the night brushed against the open corridors. In these final moments before sleep, the palace seemed to exist in perfect harmony with itself. The soft trickle of water, the distant calls of night birds, the whisper of leaves in the gardens, all blended into a serene lullaby. The pharaoh lay still, breathing in time with the steady pulse of the Nile, and the world outside and within the walls moved together in soft, measured cadence. The night deepened gradually, stretching without haste. No sounds were sudden, no movements abrupt. Only calm, continuous motion, almost imperceptible, filled the spaces. The pharaoh's eyes closed fully, letting the gentle rhythms of the palace, the river, and the night carry the mind into quiet repose. And in that soft darkness, there was nothing to do but rest, letting the world itself cradle the body and the spirit into gentle, untroubled sleep. The first light of dawn began its gentle journey across the sky, soft and pale, spilling slowly over the river. The Nile lay calm, a mirror reflecting faint shades of pink and gold. A faint mist rose from its surface, curling and drifting lazily, as though the river itself were stretching awake. Along the banks, the soft sound of water lapping against mud and reeds created a quiet, steady rhythm that filled the morning. In the outer courtyard of the palace, servants stirred gently. Their steps were measured, careful, carrying bowls of water, bundles of cloth, and small trays of food. Each movement was deliberate, as if the slow pace of the morning itself guided their actions. They moved quietly, aware of the delicate stillness, careful not to disturb the gentle awakening of the palace. The stables were first to feel the stirrings of the day. Horses and donkeys, still drowsy, stretched and shifted in their stalls. Their soft whinnies and the shuffle of hooves blended with the faint rustle of straw. The caretakers approached slowly, hands reaching for warm water and bundles of feed. Each animal was tended with patience, the motions repetitive but calming, the rhythm of daily care steady and deliberate. By the river, small boats began their quiet work. Fishermen, wrapped in simple linens, glided along the water with oars that dipped gently into the current. Nets were cast slowly, each movement precise and unhurried. Occasionally, a fish broke the surface with a faint splash, the only interruption in an otherwise seamless flow of sound and motion. The river itself seemed alive, yet calm, carrying these small acts in perfect harmony with the waking day. Back in the palace gardens, workers tended to the plants with soft, patient care. Water flowed gently from clay jars into the soil, and each seedling, each sprout received attention without haste. Bees moved among the blossoms, their hum low and steady, weaving through the scents of herbs, lotus, and flowering shrubs. The air was thick with the quiet sweetness of blooms, soft and comforting, a gentle reminder that life proceeded without urgency. The pharaoh emerged slowly, greeting the morning with measured steps along the terrace. The air carried a faint coolness, brushing gently against the skin. Linen robes, light and flowing, moved softly with each step. The pharaoh paused at the edge of the terrace, looking down at the river, its surface glimmering like liquid glass. Small boats drifted lazily, reeds swayed, and distant villages began to stir, all moving together in the unhurried rhythm of the waking world. Breakfast followed with the same calm precision as all other meals. Soft bread, freshly baked and warm, was broken carefully. Figs and dates were arranged with quiet attention. Fresh milk, thick and smooth, was poured slowly into bowls. Each bite, each sip was deliberate, the pharaoh fully present in the act of nourishment. Around the dining area, servants moved quietly, refilling vessels and adjusting trays, their hands steady, their motions soft and rhythmic. After breakfast, the day continued with gentle observation of the palace's many workings. Artisans returned to their tasks, potters shaping clay, weavers running fingers along threads, stone carvers scraping slowly at soft limestone. The pharaoh walked among them, moving at the same unhurried pace, noting details in quiet thought. Each sound, each motion blended seamlessly into the steady, unbroken cadence of life. Outside the palace walls, life along the Nile moved with equal serenity. Farmers tended fields of wheat and barley, their hoes cutting gently into the soft earth. Cattle grazed slowly, raising occasional clouds of dust that drifted softly with the morning breeze. Children walked quietly along dirt paths, carrying water from nearby wells, their voices low, harmonizing with the distant calls of birds and the ripple of the river. Everything unfolded without haste, a world synchronized to the gentle passage of the sun. As the sun climbed higher, the palace began its slow preparations for midday. Linen screens were adjusted to filter light, fountains were refreshed with cool water, and the gardens were inspected for small signs of life that required attention. Every action was deliberate, part of a seamless flow of routine, each small gesture echoing the calm rhythm of the day. The pharaoh often paused at a small lotus pond, watching the water shimmer and ripple. Tiny fish moved quietly beneath the surface, and the reflection of the sky above seemed almost still despite the faint current. Occasionally, a gentle breeze passed, carrying the scent of flowers and warm earth. It was a moment of quiet observation, a reminder that life, though full of tasks and responsibilities, could unfold with soft patience and steady attention. As the morning waned toward midday, the palace retained its gentle pulse. There was no urgency, no sudden motion, only the soft continuity of life, the careful steps of servants, the steady hands of artisans, the slow movement of boats on the river, the subtle rustle of plants in the gardens. All of it moved together, harmonious and unhurried, a steady current of calm that carried the palace, the river, and the pharaoh through another peaceful day.
The sun had risen higher in the sky now, spilling warm light across the palace courtyards. Shadows moved slowly across the stone floors, shifting imperceptibly as the day continued its gentle passage. The air was warm but not oppressive, carrying faint scents of lotus, herbs, and the soft, earthy aroma of the Nile drifting through open windows and terraces. Inside the royal halls, quiet preparations were underway. Servants moved carefully, adjusting cushions, straightening linens, and arranging small trays of food and water. Each gesture was deliberate, unhurried, as though the palace itself required a measured pace. The pharaoh's chambers remained a place of calm observation, where every motion, even the smallest, seemed significant yet soothing in its repetition. The midday meal, though simple, was presented with serene attention. Small portions of fish, tender and lightly seasoned, were placed alongside bowls of lentils and fresh vegetables from the gardens. Bread, soft and warm, was broken gently, each piece held thoughtfully before being offered. The pharaoh ate slowly, savoring textures and flavors, each bite a quiet acknowledgement of the steady rhythm of the day. After the meal, small gatherings took place in the inner halls. Advisors and attendants moved quietly, seated on low benches or cushions. Conversations were soft, voices deliberate and measured. Reports were shared in calm tones about the river, the fields, the flow of trade, or the activities of the artisans. The pharaoh listened patiently, nodding gently, absorbing each word with a quiet attentiveness. There were no sudden bursts of activity or raised voices. Each interaction was like a gentle current, moving the day forward without urgency. Throughout these hours, the palace seemed to breathe in unison with its occupants. The soft flicker of lamps, though not yet needed in full daylight, cast gentle shadows along the walls. Breezes drifted through open windows and corridors, stirring curtains and carrying faint scents of the gardens outside. Birds called softly from the terraces, and occasionally the distant cry of a waterfowl echoed across the Nile. All these sounds blended seamlessly into a serene soundscape, a backdrop of calm that filled the royal halls. The pharaoh often took a slow walk through the inner chambers after these quiet gatherings. Walls lined with muted murals depicted scenes of life along the Nile, not grand battles or monumental conquests, but the small, careful rhythms of daily living. Farmers tending crops, fishermen casting nets, craftsmen shaping clay and carving stone. The colors had softened over time, becoming gentle, almost dreamlike under the warm light of midday. Each image was absorbed slowly, a meditation in stillness and reflection. In the gardens, the soft sounds of water from fountains mingled with the rustling of leaves. Workers moved gently, trimming shrubs, watering plants, or checking the health of young saplings. Bees drifted lazily among the blossoms, their hum low and soothing. The pharaoh sometimes paused here, feeling the warmth of the sun on the skin, inhaling the subtle scents of flowering plants, and allowing the gentle movements of the garden to anchor the mind in calm awareness. Small tasks were performed in deliberate succession. A servant adjusted a ceramic vase, aligning it perfectly with the lines of the hall. Another swept gently across stone floors, the brush making slow, quiet strokes.
Even the faint clink of utensils or the soft folding of linens became part of the continuous rhythm, each sound absorbed by the hushed stillness that enveloped the palace. By the time the sun had reached its peak, a soft lull settled over the grounds. The warmth of the day pressed lightly against the walls, and the palace became a sanctuary of shade and quiet. The pharaoh sometimes reclined on cushions near a window, gazing out at the distant riverbanks. Small boats drifted along the calm water. Fishermen moved with steady, deliberate strokes, and reeds swayed gently in the warm breeze. The world outside mirrored the serene rhythm of life inside the palace. Evening preparations began slowly, though the sun had not yet dipped. Linen screens were adjusted to soften the light, fountains were refreshed, and flowers were checked for their gentle bloom. Servants moved without hurry, their steps quiet, their hands steady, as if each action were a continuation of the peaceful flow of the day. By the time the light shifted toward late afternoon, a soft sense of completion filled the palace. The pharaoh returned to private chambers, the muted quiet of the walls and floors reinforcing a deep, measured calm. Each small sound, each gentle movement seemed to echo the steady, unbroken rhythm of life along the Nile, a rhythm that flowed without rush, without abrupt change, carrying all who lived here gently through the hours of the day. And so midday passed, not with sudden events or loud announcements, but with measured, gentle continuity. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the distant fields moved together in soft, unhurried harmony. The pharaoh rested in the knowledge that life, though full of small duties and attention, could unfold quietly, peacefully, and with slow, deliberate grace. The sun began its gentle descent, softening the light across the palace and the Nile. Shadows stretched slowly over stone terraces and courtyards, blending with the warm amber glow that filled the air. The day's heat faded gradually, leaving a comfortable warmth that lingered, a quiet reminder of the sun's passage. Servants moved through the palace with deliberate calm, performing tasks that prepared the grounds and chambers for the coming evening. Linen screens were shifted slightly to catch the softest breezes. Fountains were refreshed, the water spilling gently into basins, creating a quiet, rhythmic sound that mingled with the distant hum of the river. Flowers were inspected carefully, petals touched softly, leaves brushed lightly to remove the traces of dust from the day. The pharaoh, draped in flowing linen robes, often walked through the palace gardens at this hour. The air carried the subtle scent of blooming flowers and warm earth. Lotus flowers reflected the soft amber of the late afternoon sun, their pale petals almost glowing. Bees moved slowly among the blossoms, their hum a steady, low vibration that complemented the distant sound of water flowing. Each step the pharaoh took was measured, each breath deep and unhurried, fully in tune with the calm rhythm of the surroundings. Along the Nile, fishermen guided their small boats with soft, patient strokes. Nets were cast slowly, pulled in with the same deliberate care. The river reflected the golden light, ripples moving gently across its surface. Occasionally, a bird rose from the reeds with a quiet flutter, returning moments later to settle again in the same calm pattern. The river, the birds, the fishermen, all moved together, flowing with unhurried harmony, a gentle mirror of life within the palace walls. Late afternoon meals were simple, often taken in the open courtyards where the warmth of the sun lingered. Soft bread, fresh fruit, and bowls of lentils were arranged carefully. Fish, lightly seasoned, was prepared slowly and placed on low trays. Each bite was eaten with deliberate attention, the pharaoh savoring the textures and flavors in quiet appreciation. Servants moved calmly, refilling small bowls of water and adjusting cushions. The act of eating itself became part of the soothing rhythm of the palace, a slow, mindful transition toward evening. Artisans continued their work in measured motions. Potters rotated their wheels slowly, shaping clay with soft hands. Weavers guided threads through looms, the faint friction producing a quiet, continuous rhythm. Stone carvers scraped gently at limestone blocks, each motion deliberate, steady, and unhurried. The pharaoh sometimes paused to observe these motions, appreciating the subtle continuity of skill and care, the soft cadence of creation blending seamlessly with the slow progression of the day. As the sun neared the horizon, the palace shifted subtly into the early evening. Shadows grew longer, softening the edges of walls, columns, and gardens. Lamps were lit quietly along the corridors, their golden glow warm and comforting. The flicker of flame cast gentle, moving patterns on the stone floors and walls, a calm, breathing presence that complemented the fading sunlight. From the terraces, the pharaoh could see the river stretching toward distant horizons. Small boats drifted lazily, their movement almost imperceptible. Fields beyond the palace showed the slow, steady progress of farmers tending their crops, their hands moving gently through the soil. The animals grazed without hurry. The breeze stirred reeds and palms, and the distant calls of birds mingled softly with the gentle lapping of water. The world outside moved slowly, harmonizing with the quiet pulse of the palace itself. Evening rituals began with soft, deliberate movements. The pharaoh's chambers were arranged to welcome the coolness of night. Cushions and rugs were straightened, linens adjusted, and small vessels of water or scented oils placed carefully on low stands. The pharaoh washed hands and face slowly, the cool water carrying subtle scents of herbs, grounding the mind and body in calm attentiveness. Every movement, every gesture was deliberate, echoing the measured rhythm of the day. The gardens offered a final retreat before night fully arrived. The soft gurgle of fountains mingled with the rustle of leaves. Flowers released the gentle scent of evening blooms, and the air carried a faint, comforting warmth. The pharaoh walked slowly among the paths, pausing occasionally to observe a flower, touch a leaf, or feel the soft stones beneath bare feet. Each step was quiet, each motion thoughtful, a meditation in rhythm and presence. As dusk deepened, the river reflected the fading light of the sky. Stars began to appear gradually, soft points of illumination scattered across the heavens. Their reflections shimmered faintly on the water, creating a mirror of calm, silent beauty. The palace settled into quietness. Servants moved softly, finishing small tasks, arranging the chambers for the comfort of the night. Every motion, every sound contributed to a seamless, unbroken rhythm of calm and continuity. The pharaoh retired to the inner chambers, the linens cool and inviting. The lamps were extinguished, leaving only the faint glow of the moonlight spilling through open windows. The night embraced the palace, the gardens, and the river, a slow, steady current of quiet that carried all life into restful repose. And in this stillness there was nothing to do but breathe, to feel the gentle rhythm of the world, and to allow the calm of evening to ease the mind and body into soft, untroubled sleep.
Night had fully embraced the land now. The sky above the Nile was a soft, deep indigo, sprinkled with faint, distant stars. Their light reflected quietly in the river, small points of illumination dancing with the gentle movement of the water.
A calm breeze drifted across the palace terraces, carrying the subtle scent of evening blooms and warm earth, moving softly through open corridors and across smooth stone floors. The palace, though still alive with small movements, had settled into quietness. Servants moved slowly and carefully, attending to the subtle needs of the pharaoh in the chambers. A tray of water and soft cloths was carried along the hallways, each step deliberate, almost inaudible, as if even sound itself had been asked to move slowly and gently. The pharaoh's attendants adjusted cushions and rugs, straightened linens, and ensured that every small detail of the rooms contributed to an atmosphere of calm, a world designed to soothe the senses and quiet the mind. Within the private chambers, the pharaoh engaged in quiet reflection. Low cushions offered support for the body, and a small table held scrolls, carefully rolled and tied with soft cords. Slowly, deliberately, the pharaoh unrolled one, the papyrus soft beneath gentle fingers. Words inscribed long ago described simple acts of life: gardening, tending animals, fishing, or observing the river. The stories were read in a measured, whispering voice, more to listen to the soft sounds of the inked letters and the texture of the paper than to seek information. Each line was absorbed slowly, the mind drifting gently alongside the rhythm of the words. Outside the palace, the river mirrored the sky. Boats drifted silently, their oars moving with deliberate slowness. Fishermen, aware of the calmness of night, guided their vessels in measured strokes, barely disturbing the smooth surface of the water. Along the banks, reeds swayed in harmony with the breeze. Occasionally, the soft splash of a fish breaking the surface added a quiet punctuation to the night's steady rhythm. The world itself seemed to slow in reverent patience, carrying all life into a gentle, continuous flow. Within the palace gardens, fountains murmured softly. Water cascaded over smooth stones, creating a faint hypnotic sound that blended with the rustle of leaves and the low, distant hum of insects. The pharaoh often paused here, moving slowly along the paths, observing the pale blossoms of flowers illuminated by moonlight. Bees and other night insects moved quietly among the petals, their gentle activity adding a soft, natural accompaniment to the stillness. Each inhalation carried the faint perfume of blossoms, and each exhalation released the warm calm of the day into the night air. Music, too, had its place in these quiet hours. A harp, strummed with soft, deliberate fingers, produced notes that lingered in the air like slow-moving clouds. The melody was simple, unhurried, weaving through the halls and gardens, echoing softly against the stone walls. Each vibration of string and wood seemed to stretch time, elongating the moment, carrying the mind and body toward deeper relaxation. Even the faintest creak of wood or rustle of fabric was absorbed into the gentle rhythm, unnoticed yet comforting. Occasionally, visitors came, advisors or close attendants, moving quietly through the halls. Their voices were soft, their gestures careful. Small exchanges occurred without urgency, words spoken in measured tones, replies given with calm consideration. These interactions, though part of the duties of the palace, unfolded as if in a separate world, one where life was deliberate, harmonious, and free from hurry. Each motion, each sound blended into the overarching tranquility of the night. The pharaoh often returned to the private chambers in the deepest part of the evening. Linen sheets were drawn up slowly, the cool fabric embracing the body like a gentle, reassuring weight. Lamps were dimmed, leaving only the soft glow of moonlight reflecting through open windows. The palace itself seemed to breathe, settling fully into the quiet. Outside, the river carried on its slow journey. Fields rested, Animals slept, and the wind whispered softly among the reeds. Even as the night deepened, the pharaoh remained attentive to the subtle details of life. The faint fragrance of herbs and flowers, the whisper of the wind, the soft, distant sounds of water, each sensation was acknowledged gently, allowing the mind to drift without effort. Every movement of the attendants, every ripple in the river, every sigh of the earth was woven into the continuous, gentle rhythm of the palace and the world. And then, finally, the pharaoh lay fully still, eyes closed, body relaxed, each breath moving in time with the steady pulse of the Nile and the subtle currents of the night air. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the distant fields all moved together quietly, deliberately, in soft, unhurried harmony. The sounds of the night, the low hum of water, the rustle of leaves, the faint stirring of animals, formed a gentle lullaby. Before the first hint of sunlight, the palace lay in deep, comforting stillness. The air was cool and calm, carrying the faint, soft scent of night-blooming flowers and the subtle, earthy aroma of the river. The Nile itself seemed almost frozen in time, its surface smooth and reflective, mirroring the stars overhead. Small ripples moved quietly, stirred only by the gentle caress of a night breeze. Servants and attendants began to stir, moving slowly and carefully through the corridors. Their steps were measured, soft against the stone floors, each action deliberate. Water was carried in clay jars, quietly poured into basins. Cushions were adjusted, and rugs smoothed along the floors. Every movement was gentle, almost imperceptible, preserving the delicate calm of the palace before dawn. The pharaoh, often awake by this hour, sat quietly on a low cushioned bench. The soft glow of moonlight filtered through open windows, illuminating pale walls and muted murals in subtle silver and gray tones. The room was still, except for the occasional distant sound of water dripping from fountains or the quiet rustle of leaves outside. A small bowl of cool milk, lightly sweetened with dates, was placed before the pharaoh. Each sip was deliberate, slow, savoring the gentle sweetness and the comforting coolness as it passed the lips. In the gardens, the world began its soft, early stirrings. Dew clung to lotus petals and grass, each droplet catching the faint light and reflecting it like tiny stars. Bees moved lazily among the flowers, their hum low and barely audible. Fountains whispered quietly, and reeds swayed in the gentle morning breeze. The pharaoh sometimes walked along the stone paths, bare feet touching the cool surface, pausing to inhale the subtle fragrance of flowers and moist earth. Every motion was unhurried, every breath mindful, a meditation in quiet presence. Along the river, fishermen prepared their small boats. Nets were arranged carefully, oars positioned slowly. Movements were deliberate, each stroke quiet, as if the river itself required respect in these early, fragile hours. The water mirrored the soft colors of the sky, deepening from indigo to pale violet as the first hints of sunrise approached the horizon. The gentle motion of the boats and the occasional splash of water became part of the serene rhythm of the awakening world. Breakfast at this hour was light and calm. Fresh fruit, soft bread, and small portions of cheese were arranged with quiet care. Water, cool and clear, was poured slowly into clay bowls. The pharaoh ate with gentle attention, each bite mindful, savoring textures and subtle flavors. Servants moved quietly, attending to small needs, their hands steady, their voices soft, blending seamlessly into the stillness of the morning. The early hours were also a time for observing the palace and its grounds. The pharaoh would stroll along terraces, noticing details in the gardens, the curve of a leaf, the faint pattern of ripples on the pond, the way sunlight began to touch the distant fields. Birds called softly from trees and reeds, a gentle accompaniment to the almost imperceptible sounds of water and wind. Each motion and each sound was slow, deliberate, harmonizing with the slow flow of life around the palace. Artisans began their gentle work in preparation for the day. Potters rotated wheels with measured, soft movements. Weavers guided threads slowly through looms, the friction of fibers producing faint, comforting sounds. Stone carvers scraped limestone blocks with careful attention, their rhythm steady and unhurried. Even the smallest of these movements contributed to the calming pulse of the palace, a quiet symphony of everyday life. As the horizon brightened, the first faint hues of gold and pink appeared. The river caught the light softly, reflecting it in gentle waves that rippled across its surface. The palace, gardens, and riverbanks all seemed to breathe together in harmony. The pharaoh observed this quiet transformation, appreciating the slow, natural shift from night to day. Every motion, every sound, every breath became part of the seamless rhythm of life. And so the pre-dawn hours passed. There were no sudden events, no loud interruptions, only the gentle unfolding of morning. The palace, the river, the gardens, and the distant fields moved together in soft, unhurried continuity. The pharaoh remained present in the calm, allowing the slow, steady rhythm of life to carry the mind, body, and spirit gently forward into the tranquil promise of a new day. The sun had risen fully now, spilling pale golden light across the palace terraces and the calm waters of the Nile. Its warmth was soft, not harsh, brushing lightly against stone walls and the woven mats that lined the floors of the inner halls. The air carried the faint scent of sun-warmed earth, flowering herbs, and the gentle perfume of lotus blossoms drifting from the gardens. The palace stirred with quiet, measured energy. Servants moved softly through corridors, adjusting cushions, filling water basins, and arranging trays of food. Each gesture was deliberate and unhurried, as though time itself was stretching to accommodate the calm flow of life. No steps were rushed, no voices rose above a gentle whisper. Even the soft clatter of ceramic vessels was absorbed into the peaceful rhythm of the morning. In the gardens, dew still lingered on leaves and flowers, sparkling in the sunlight like tiny jewels. Workers moved carefully among the plants, watering young shoots and checking the health of trees and shrubs. The soft hum of bees mingled with the gentle murmur of fountains, creating a serene symphony of sounds. The pharaoh often walked slowly along these paths, bare feet brushing over cool stone, hands resting lightly on wooden railings, pausing to observe each blossom, each leaf, each ripple in the pond. Every movement was deliberate, every breath calm and measured, fully in tune with the quiet world. Along the Nile, small boats drifted lazily with the gentle current. Fishermen cast nets and guided their vessels with soft, steady motions. The water reflected the sky, now bright with morning light, creating gentle ripples that shimmered across its surface. Occasionally, a fish broke through the stillness, creating a small splash that dissolved quickly into silence. The river, the boats, and the reeds along the banks moved together in harmonious, deliberate rhythm, echoing the peaceful pulse of the palace. Breakfast was simple and gentle, a continuation of the calm morning. Soft bread, sweet dates, and fresh cheese were served in small portions, presented with careful attention. Water, cool and clear, was poured slowly into clay bowls. The pharaoh ate deliberately, savoring the textures and flavors, allowing the act of nourishment itself to be a meditation. Servants moved quietly, replenishing small vessels and arranging cushions, their soft, steady movements blending seamlessly with the gentle rhythm of the morning. In the inner halls of the palace began to hum with measured activity. Artisans returned to their tasks, potters shaping clay with soft circular motions, weavers threading delicate fibers through looms, and stone carvers scraping at blocks of limestone with steady, precise hands. Each sound was subtle, the friction of clay against wheel, the soft tug of thread, the scraping of chisel against stone, and each blended into a slow, comforting cadence that filled the palace with a sense of harmonious continuity. Visitors, often advisors or close attendants, arrived quietly, their movements soft and considered. Reports were shared in low, deliberate tones, the flow of the river, the condition of the crops, the progress of artisans' work. The pharaoh listened carefully, nodding gently, absorbing each detail with a calm, steady presence. Conversations were uninterrupted by urgency or haste. Words unfolded softly, as if floating in the warm morning air, adding to the slow, peaceful rhythm of the day. In the terraces and courtyards, the sun warmed stone surfaces, casting soft shadows that shifted slowly with the movement of light. The pharaoh would pause at windows or along walkways, observing the distant fields where farmers worked in quiet, steady rhythm. Animals grazed leisurely, the occasional sound of hooves against earth punctuating the gentle murmurs of the morning. Everything moved together, synchronized to the deliberate, unhurried pace of life, creating a seamless harmony between palace, river, and land beyond. By mid-morning, the palace gardens were filled with gentle, quiet activity. Water flowed softly through fountains, birds moved among trees and flowering shrubs, and attendants adjusted plants, paths, and small features with mindful attention. The pharaoh sometimes sat near the lotus pond, observing the water's reflective surface, the slow dance of fish beneath, and the soft sway of leaves above. The world felt suspended in a delicate balance of sound, movement, and light, each sensation contributing to the unbroken calm of the morning. Even as the sun climbed higher, the palace remained a sanctuary of serenity. There was no rush, no abrupt change, only a slow, steady unfolding of activity. Servants, artisans, advisors, and the pharaoh moved together in a quiet, continuous rhythm. The sound of water, the soft brush of leaves, the gentle motions of daily work all merged into a soft, unhurried harmony. Each moment was observed fully, experienced without hurry, a continuous thread of calm that carried through the morning into the steady promise of midday. As the sun reached its zenith, the light filled the palace with a gentle, warm glow. Stone floors shimmered faintly under the soft illumination, and the air carried the subtle scent of warm earth, fresh water, and blooming flowers from the gardens. Shadows fell slowly and softened against the walls and columns, moving imperceptibly as the day flowed steadily onward. Inside the palace, a quiet stillness reigned. Servants adjusted cushions and rugs, placed small bowls of water near resting places, and moved lightly along corridors, their footsteps deliberate and unhurried. The faint clink of ceramic or metal was softened by the measured care in which it was handled, blending seamlessly into the soft rhythm of midday. The pharaoh often spent these hours in calm observation. From a terrace overlooking the river, the movement of boats and fishermen appeared slow and peaceful, each stroke of the oar deliberate. The surface of the Nile glimmered under the sun, reflecting pale blue sky and soft clouds drifting lazily overhead. Birds called softly from distant reeds, their cries echoing gently across the water, harmonizing with the subtle rustle of leaves in the gardens. Each sound and motion was absorbed fully, creating a continuous, soothing cadence that filled the mind with calm awareness. Midday meals were prepared with care, though taken simply and slowly. Fresh bread, small portions of fish, and soft fruit were arranged carefully, accompanied by cool water poured gently into clay bowls. The pharaoh ate deliberately, noting textures and flavors, the act itself becoming part of the steady rhythm of the day. Servants moved quietly nearby, ensuring comfort and continuity, their soft movements reinforcing the gentle flow of life throughout the palace. Artisans continued their careful work, each task performed with slow precision. Potters rotated wheels steadily, fingers tracing clay in circular motions, forming gentle curves that would harden into lasting shapes. Weavers moved threads through looms with deliberate care, their hands guiding patterns that unfolded steadily without rush. Stone carvers scraped at limestone blocks, small repetitive motions producing a subtle cadence that became part of the palace's continuous soundscape. The pharaoh often paused to observe these gentle activities, appreciating their quiet persistence and the unbroken rhythm they contributed to daily life. In the gardens, fountains murmured softly. Water spilled over smooth stone, forming tiny ripples in the ponds. Flowers glowed in the sunlight, petals soft and delicate, while bees and other insects moved slowly among blossoms. The pharaoh walked along the shaded paths, pausing to touch leaves, notice the gentle sway of plants in the warm breeze, and feel the soft, steady heartbeat of life in each living thing. Every motion was deliberate, every breath measured, fully present in the calm flow of midday. Conversations within the palace were equally measured. Advisors and attendants spoke in low tones, sharing news of river trade, agricultural progress, or the completion of various tasks. Each word was deliberate, each response given with calm attention. There were no sudden interruptions or raised voices. Even the movement of hands, the passing of scrolls, or the arranging of objects on tables was performed slowly, contributing to the seamless rhythm of life in the palace. From the terraces, the pharaoh observed the fields beyond. Farmers moved in quiet sequences, tending crops with steady hands. Cattle grazed in muted, slow movements. The river reflected the sun, rippling gently, carrying small boats in a rhythmic, unhurried journey. Birds flew lazily across the sky, sometimes dipping close to the water before rising again in soft arcs. Each detail, each motion was absorbed fully, becoming part of the continuous soothing current of life that the palace and its surroundings embodied. By the time the sun began its gradual descent toward afternoon, a soft, settled calm filled the palace. Light shifted, softening the edges of walls, gardens, and terraces. Servants moved gently to adjust linens, refresh basins, and ensure that every chamber maintained its quiet order. The pharaoh rested briefly on cushions, watching shadows stretch and bend, noticing subtle changes in color, texture, and sound. Every moment was experienced deliberately, without hurry, a meditation in the slow, harmonious flow of life. Even in the midst of routine duties, the palace retained a sense of stillness. The soft hum of water, the gentle rustle of leaves, the faint sounds of distant activity along the riverbanks, all were absorbed into the calming rhythm that pervaded the day. Each step, each motion, each breath was deliberate, woven seamlessly into the unbroken cadence of palace life, carrying both the pharaoh and attendants gently through the steady, serene unfolding of midday. And so the world remained in gentle balance. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the surrounding lands moved together in a quiet, continuous rhythm. Life proceeded slowly, with deliberate care, each moment stretching into the next without urgency or interruption. The pharaoh, fully present in the steady flow of routine, felt the quiet continuity of existence, allowing the calm of midday to permeate every sense, every breath, and every thought.
The sun began its slow descent, casting a soft, golden haze over the palace and gardens. Shadows stretched longer across stone floors and walls, deepening the gentle contrast between light and shade. The air, still warm from the day, carried the faint, comforting sense of lotus, herbs, and the earth warmed by the sun, mingling with the softer aroma of water from the fountains and the Nile. Palace attendants moved with deliberate care, their motions slow and gentle. Linen curtains were shifted to catch the softest breezes. Water in fountains was refreshed quietly, and trays of small vessels were arranged near resting places. Each action was performed thoughtfully, as if time itself had slowed to accommodate the calm rhythm of life within these walls. The palace hummed with quiet continuity, a steady current of movement that was both purposeful and soothing. The pharaoh often walked through the terraces and gardens at this hour, enjoying the subtle changes in light and the soft sounds of the world. The lotus ponds shimmered under the descending sun, petals catching gentle highlights and reflecting soft colors onto the surrounding stone. Birds called quietly from the distant reeds, and occasionally a fish would leap just above the water, breaking the calm surface with a small, rippling splash. The soft murmur of fountains, the faint rustle of leaves, and these occasional sounds formed a quiet symphony that filled the palace and gardens alike. Small preparations for the evening began with careful attention. Cushions and rugs were adjusted, low tables and trays aligned precisely, and small basins of water were arranged thoughtfully near seating areas. Servants moved quietly, their steps deliberate and measured, blending seamlessly into the steady rhythm of late afternoon. Even the faint clinking of ceramic vessels was softened by the slow, deliberate pace of all who moved through the palace. The pharaoh sometimes paused in the inner halls, observing murals that lined the walls. The muted colors of ancient scenes depicted daily life, farmers tending fields, fishermen guiding boats along the river, artisans shaping clay and carving stone. Each image seemed to breathe in harmony with the palace itself, telling stories of continuity and calm, of rhythms that had endured across time. The pharaoh absorbed these images slowly, tracing details with gentle fingers, noticing the soft interplay of light and shadow, and letting the mind rest in the tranquil narratives of the walls. In the gardens, fountains whispered quietly, water flowing over smooth stones and forming gentle ripples in the ponds.
Flowers released their subtle evening fragrances, mingling with the warm, softened air. Bees and insects moved languidly among blossoms, and the pharaoh strolled along shaded paths, pausing to touch leaves, feel the cool stone beneath bare feet, and observe the gentle sway of reeds in the breeze. Each motion was slow, deliberate, a meditation in harmony with the fading light. The river, too, took on the calm of late afternoon. Small boats drifted with the current, oars guided with measured strokes. The sun's reflection shimmered on the water in soft, golden patterns, moving gently with each ripple. Birds flew in quiet arcs across the sky, dipping toward the water before rising again, their soft cries absorbed into the continuous rhythm of the river's flow. Farmers and animals in distant fields moved in gentle sequences, their quiet motions complementing the serene pace of the palace. Conversations inside the palace were muted and deliberate. Advisors and attendants spoke softly, sharing observations of daily life, the state of the river, the progress of artisans' work, or the status of gardens and animals. Words were spoken with care, replies measured, every exchange flowing slowly, without interruption or urgency. Even the simplest gestures, the passing of a scroll, the adjustment of a cushion, the pouring of water, were performed in deliberate harmony with the gentle cadence of late afternoon. As the sun dipped further, the palace was filled with soft, warm light. Walls, floors, and gardens glowed with subtle amber tones. Shadows shifted imperceptibly, blending with the light to create a soothing, ever-changing tapestry of color and form. The pharaoh often rested briefly near low cushions near a window or terrace, observing the soft interplay of light and shadow, noticing the quiet ripples of the river, the slow movement of clouds, and the distant gentle activity in fields and gardens beyond. Every sense was attuned to the subtle beauty of these moments, each one stretching gently into the next without hurry. Even in the midst of routine, the palace felt timeless. The soft murmur of fountains, the rustle of leaves, the occasional splash of water, and the low, deliberate hum of activity all blended into an unbroken, calming rhythm. Time seemed to slow, carrying the pharaoh and all within the palace through a seamless, gentle transition from day into evening. And so the late afternoon passed, not with sudden events or loud interruptions, but with a continuous, measured unfolding of life. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the surrounding lands moved together in quiet harmony. Every movement, every sound, every breath was deliberate and soothing, a slow, unhurried dance that carried all gently toward the soft embrace of evening.
The sun had lowered further, and the sky was painted in soft shades of rose, gold, and pale lavender. Shadows deepened slowly across the palace walls, stretching along corridors, terraces, and gardens. The warmth of the day gradually softened into a gentle, comfortable glow, and the air carried the faint, calming scent of flowers, cool stone, and the river's gentle breath. Servants moved quietly, adjusting cushions, mats, and small trays. Water in basins was refreshed with careful precision, and lamps were prepared, their wicks trimmed and placed in earthen holders. Every movement was slow and deliberate, designed to maintain the calm rhythm of the palace while welcoming the subtle changes that twilight brought. The soft murmur of fountains blended seamlessly with the faint rustle of leaves and the occasional flutter of a bird returning to its nest. The pharaoh often walked along the terraces, observing the soft interplay of light and shadow. The lotus ponds reflected the sky's colors, their petals catching the fading light
and casting gentle reflections across the still water. Fish moved lazily beneath the surface, their movements slow and deliberate. The air carried the delicate fragrance of evening blooms, mingled with the earthy aroma of warmed stone and soil, forming a calm, continuous sensory rhythm. Along the river, boats drifted quietly with the current. Fishermen guided their oars with measured strokes, their nets resting gently in the water. The sun's reflection shimmered softly, moving with the faint ripples. Reeds swayed in the evening breeze, and the distant fields beyond the palace displayed the soft, steady work of farmers finishing their day. Animals moved in gentle, deliberate sequences, grazing or resting quietly as the day gave way to twilight. The palace itself began to transition into evening. Soft lamps were lit in corridors and inner chambers, their flickering glow creating warm, moving patterns across walls and floors. Shadows shifted subtly, blending with the amber light to create a gentle tapestry of calm. Cushions and rugs were adjusted for comfort, small basins of water placed within reach, and low tables arranged for quiet rituals. Every gesture was measured, each action deliberate, maintaining the serene flow of life within the palace. Early meals were quiet and simple, prepared with care and consumed slowly. Fresh bread, small portions of fish, soft fruit, and cool water were arranged thoughtfully. The pharaoh ate with gentle attention, savoring each bite, each texture, each subtle flavor. Servants moved softly around the room, replenishing vessels and adjusting cushions, their actions blending seamlessly into the calm rhythm of the evening. Every movement was unhurried, every sound absorbed into the continuous, soothing cadence of the palace. Artisans continued their work in soft, deliberate motions, though with a slower pace as the light diminished. Potters rotated wheels carefully, forming gentle curves with steady hands. Weavers guided threads through looms with patient precision. Stone carvers scraped at limestone blocks, the subtle, repetitive sound blending into the gentle symphony of evening life. Each activity contributed to the unbroken rhythm, a quiet pulse that carried the palace smoothly toward nightfall. The pharaoh sometimes paused to observe the distant horizon where the sky met the river. Colors shifted imperceptibly from soft golds and pinks to pale purples and deepening blues. Birds returned to nests, leaves settled in the gentle breeze, and the water reflected the slow change of light. The world itself seemed to breathe slowly, a quiet, unhurried rhythm that mirrored the gentle unfolding of life within the palace walls. Conversations and interactions at this hour were soft, deliberate, and measured. Advisors spoke in low tones, attendants responded carefully, and each motion was conducted with quiet awareness. Words were exchanged slowly, gestures made with deliberate care, and every action harmonized with the calm cadence of twilight. Even small noises, footsteps, the movement of a scroll, the pouring of water, were absorbed into the gentle, continuous flow of the evening. And as twilight deepened, the palace settled fully into calm. Fountains whispered softly, leaves swayed quietly, and distant riverbanks were bathed in the last light of the day. The pharaoh moved slowly to private chambers, preparing for rest, observing the subtle beauty of the world as night approached. Each breath, each step, each sensation was deliberate, absorbed fully into the soft, continuous rhythm of life. The world outside grew quieter still. The Nile reflected the deepening colors of the sky, and boats drifted lazily with the current. Animals rested, fields lay still, and the gentle rustle of leaves mingled with the low murmur of water. Within the palace, soft lamps flickered, casting moving shadows across walls and floors. Every movement, every sound, every breath was deliberate and unhurried, forming a seamless rhythm that carried the pharaoh gently toward the quiet of night. Night had fully settled over the land. The sky was a deep, tranquil blue, scattered with countless pale stars. Their soft, distant light reflected quietly in the calm surface of the Nile, tiny points of illumination dancing slowly with the gentle movement of the water. The air had cooled, carrying the faint, comforting scent of earth, river, and blooming night flowers. A soft breeze whispered through reeds and trees, moving slowly and gently across the palace gardens and terraces. Within the palace, movement was deliberate, quiet, and calm. Servants attended to small tasks, their steps soft against stone floors. Linen cushions were adjusted carefully, basins of water refreshed, and small trays of food or drink placed thoughtfully near resting areas. Even the faintest clink of ceramic or metal was softened by the careful, measured way it was handled. The palace itself seemed to breathe slowly, the walls and corridors steeped in quiet, continuous rhythm. The pharaoh often moved through the inner chambers, observing the subtle changes brought by night. Lamps were lit, their warm glow flickering gently, casting long, soft shadows across floors, walls, and tapestries. The movement of light created a slow, living pattern, blending with the gentle rustle of leaves outside and the distant murmur of the river. Every sensation, the warmth of lamps, the softness of cushions, the faint fragrance of night-blooming flowers, was absorbed slowly and deliberately, forming a calm, continuous awareness. The river, now bathed in moonlight, flowed with quiet persistence. Small boats drifted lazily with the current, oars moving softly, their strokes deliberate. The water reflected the gentle gleam of stars above, shimmering and rippling in slow, hypnotic patterns. Reeds swayed gently, birds and insects made quiet, intermittent sounds, and distant fields lay hushed under the soft glow of night. The pharaoh often paused to observe this serene scene, feeling the steady pulse of life in every motion and sound, and letting the calm of the river flow inward, filling the mind with quiet reflection. Evening meals or light refreshments at this hour were simple, small, and deliberate. Fresh bread, soft cheese, fruit, and cool water were arranged carefully, consumed slowly with mindful attention. Servants moved quietly, replenishing small vessels, adjusting cushions or smoothing rugs. Every movement was harmonized with the gentle, unhurried rhythm of the palace, creating a sense of continuity and stability. Artisans, too, continued their work in measured silence. Potters rotated wheels with slow, precise movements, shaping clay into gentle curves. Weavers guided threads through looms deliberately, the soft friction of fibers producing faint, comforting sounds. Stone carvers worked quietly, scraping limestone blocks with steady hands, their motions blending seamlessly into the gentle pulse of the palace at night. The soft rhythm of their work added a subtle texture to the stillness, a quiet reminder of continuity and care. The pharaoh often spent these hours observing the palace and gardens. The lotus ponds glimmered under the silver light of the moon, petals reflecting soft illumination across the water. Leaves swayed gently in the evening breeze, and the faint hum of insects mingled with the subtle splash of water as fish moved lazily beneath the surface. Every detail, the curve of a leaf, the shimmer of water, the subtle fragrance of flowers, was absorbed slowly and deliberately, forming a calm, continuous awareness that filled the senses without effort. Even conversations at night were quiet, measured, deliberate. Advisors spoke in low tones, attendants responded carefully, and every gesture was performed slowly, harmonizing with the steady rhythm of palace life. Words floated softly through the corridors, absorbed gently into the calm environment. Every sound, every motion, every breath contributed to the seamless, tranquil flow of the night. As the hours deepened, the palace gradually prepared for rest. Cushions and rugs were adjusted, basins of water placed thoughtfully, and lamps dimmed until only their soft glow remained. The pharaoh moved to private chambers, laying upon cushions and linen sheets, each breath slow, steady, and deliberate. The palace seemed to exhale softly, each corner, each corridor, each garden embracing quiet. Outside, the river continued its gentle journey, reflecting the pale moon and distant stars. Reeds swayed in a soft rhythmic dance, and the occasional fish created small ripples that dissolved quickly into silence. Animals rested quietly in distant fields, and even the wind moved with slow, gentle deliberation. Every element of the night, the soft hum of water, the rustle of leaves, the distant murmurs of life, blended into a continuous soothing rhythm that carried the pharaoh and all within the palace gently toward sleep. The pharaoh lay fully still, eyes closed, body relaxed, each breath harmonizing with the soft, unhurried pulse of the night. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the distant fields moved together quietly in perfect calm. The world unfolded slowly, seamlessly, without interruption, each sensation absorbed and carried gently forward. Time itself seemed to stretch, becoming soft, slow, and infinite. And so the night deepened, embracing the pharaoh and the palace in quiet, continuous calm. Every motion, every sound, every breath blended into the gentle rhythm of life. The river flowed, the gardens whispered, the palace hummed softly, and the world carried on with deliberate, soothing patience, creating a gentle, unbroken current that carried all toward rest, into quiet, and into the soft embrace of sleep.
Midnight settled quietly over the land, deep and velvety. The sky above was a rich, dark blue, dotted with pale, distant stars. Their soft, steady light shimmered across the surface of the Nile, reflecting faintly on gentle ripples. The river moved slowly, carrying its calm current onward, whispering softly to the banks and reeds that leaned toward the water in gentle arcs. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint, comforting sense of earth, water, and night-blooming flowers, mingling with the subtle warmth that lingered from the day. Within the palace, every movement had softened into near silence. Servants, having completed their evening tasks, rested quietly in shadowed corners or soft niches, their breathing steady, measured. Small lamps, trimmed and lowered, cast a dim amber glow, illuminating only enough to reveal the outlines of cushions, low tables, and gentle folds of linen. Each corner of the palace seemed to exhale softly, the stone walls absorbing sound and radiating calm. The pharaoh lay resting upon soft cushions, body relaxed, eyes closed, each breath steady and deliberate. The rhythm of the heart, slow and unhurried, matched the quiet pulse of the palace. Occasionally, the faint sound of a footstep
or a distant shift of fabric reminded the mind of presence without breaking the stillness. Every sensation, warmth, coolness, the subtle scent of flowers, the gentle sounds from the river, was absorbed softly, like a meditation in the quiet hours. Outside, the gardens and lotus ponds were bathed in silver light. Petals shimmered softly, dew clinging lightly to each leaf. The gentle hum of insects moved lazily through the night air, blending with the whisper of water in the fountains. Fish stirred slowly beneath the pond's surface, creating faint ripples that dissolved almost imperceptibly. The pharaoh could hear, if he wished, the subtle breath of life continuing beyond the walls of the palace in perfect harmony with the stillness within. The Nile itself seemed suspended in quiet reverence. Boats, long at rest, reflected the starry sky as if floating on a liquid mirror. Reeds swayed slowly, rustling gently with the softest breeze. Occasionally, a distant animal called softly, a low murmur carried across fields and riverbanks, absorbed quickly by night. Even the faintest sound became part of the continuous gentle rhythm that filled the midnight hours, a quiet music for the mind to rest upon. Artisans and workers, having long finished their day, rested in their chambers. Their tools lay still, potter's wheels motionless, looms silent, chisels and stones untouched. The palace embraced a calm pause, a deep, deliberate silence, unbroken except for the soft, natural movements of the world outside. Shadows shifted subtly as the moonlight moved, creating slow, imperceptible patterns on walls and floors. In this quiet, the pharaoh's thoughts moved slowly, absorbed in the calm continuity of palace life, the flowing river, the distant fields, and the gentle sway of gardens. Each breath became a thread connecting body, mind, and the world around, weaving them into a slow, unbroken rhythm. The heart of the palace itself seemed to pulse gently, carrying the stillness forward, uninterrupted and peaceful. Even in these deepest hours, the world moved with deliberate care. The river whispered softly, the gardens hummed a quiet tune of life, and distant creatures rested in muted harmony. Time itself seemed to stretch, not measured by hours, but by the gentle unfolding of breath, the slow movement of water, and the tranquil presence of everything surrounding the pharaoh. The pharaoh lay completely at ease, the steady rhythm of the night surrounding him. Every sound, every shadow, every faint movement merged into a continuous soothing current. The palace, the river, the gardens, and the distant lands beyond moved together in perfect, gentle harmony. Each element flowed slowly, deliberately, carrying all into a quiet, unbroken peace that wrapped around body and mind alike. And so the midnight hours passed, with nothing hurried, nothing loud, nothing abrupt. Only the steady, measured cadence of life continued, moving gently through stone, water, air, and flesh. The world itself seemed to breathe slowly, and in that gentle pulse, the pharaoh, the palace, and all within its walls were carried softly into a calm, uninterrupted rest.
The world lay in profound quiet. The palace, the gardens, the river, and distant fields all rested under the velvet dark of night. The air was cool and still, carrying faint scents of damp earth, lotus, and the subtle warmth of stone that had held the sun's heat from the day. Each corner of the palace seemed softened, as if the walls themselves had exhaled, settling into a calm, unbroken hush.
Within the inner chambers, lamps were extinguished, leaving only the pale glow of moonlight drifting through high windows and open terraces. The pharaoh lay among cushions and soft linens, completely at ease. Breaths came slow and steady, each one a gentle, deliberate motion. Every heartbeat, every faint stir of muscle was harmonized with the quiet pulse of the palace, echoing softly in the vast stillness. Outside, the Nile flowed quietly, its water reflecting the faint stars above. Small ripples moved in slow, steady patterns, carrying the soft reflections of moonlight and distant trees. The reeds along the banks swayed slightly, rustling softly with the barely perceptible breeze. Occasionally, the subtle call of a nocturnal bird or the quiet splash of a fish broke the silence, dissolving instantly into the gentle, continuous rhythm of the river. In the gardens, night flowers released their delicate fragrances, mingling with the softened scent of water and stone. Dew collected lightly on leaves, glimmering faintly in the moonlight. Insects moved languidly among petals, their quiet hum blending with the murmur of fountains and the whisper of the breeze. Every detail, every subtle sound became part of the slow, unhurried symphony of the night. The palace itself seemed to breathe softly. Corridors stretched quietly into shadow, doors rested ajar, and cushions lay where they had been adjusted hours before. The faintest creak of wood or brush of fabric was absorbed into the deep stillness. Servants resting in quiet corners slept lightly or shifted softly in their sleep, careful not to disturb the unbroken calm that enveloped the entire palace. The pharaoh's mind drifted slowly through gentle thoughts, memories of the day, the movement of boats along the Nile, the quiet tending of gardens, the deliberate work of artisans, all flowed softly together, like a calm river of reflection. Each sensation, each remembered touch, smell, and sound merged into a meditative awareness that carried the body and mind toward the deepest state of rest. Even as the hours stretched, there was no sense of urgency or change. Time seemed suspended, measured not in minutes or hours, but in slow, continuous breathing, in the subtle rhythm of water, wind, and the movement of leaves. Every element of the palace and its surroundings participated in this serene, unbroken harmony. The Nile whispered softly against its banks, the gardens swayed lightly, and distant animals rested in the fields. Even the night sky seemed motionless yet alive, stars faintly twinkling, each one a quiet note in the gentle symphony of darkness. The palace itself rested completely, each stone and beam settled into soft, deliberate stillness. The pharaoh lay quietly, completely absorbed in the calm rhythm surrounding him. The moonlight painted soft patterns across his resting place. Every breath, every heartbeat, every faint movement was absorbed into the serene, continuous flow of palace life. Nothing was hurried, nothing was loud, nothing was abrupt. Only the slow, deliberate cadence of existence persisted, carrying body and mind gently through the quiet hours before dawn. And so the pre-dawn hours unfolded. The world outside and within moved in perfect, gentle harmony. The river, the gardens, the palace, and the distant fields existed together in unbroken calm. Each element flowed seamlessly into the next, a slow, measured, soothing rhythm that enveloped the pharaoh completely, guiding him gently, imperceptibly, toward the soft promise of morning light. The night gradually loosened its hold, giving way to the faintest hint of light along the horizon. The sky shifted imperceptibly from deep velvet to a delicate pale blue, tinged with soft shades of rose and gold. Shadows that had stretched long and quiet through the night began to shorten, blending gently with the awakening colors of the morning. The air was cool, carrying the subtle scent of damp earth, fresh water, and the faint sweetness of night-blooming flowers fading into the day. Within the palace, a slow, gentle stir moved through corridors and chambers. Servants, still in soft repose, began to awaken with careful, measured movements. Cushions were fluffed, rugs adjusted, and small basins of water refreshed quietly. Each action was deliberate, performed with the same calm attention as the natural world outside. Even the faintest sound, a soft sigh, a quiet step, the gentle rustle of linen, was absorbed into the palace's serene rhythm. The pharaoh, resting on cushions within a quiet chamber, felt the first traces of morning light drifting through high windows and open terraces. Eyes still closed, each breath slow and deliberate, he listened to the subtle sounds of the world awakening. The distant river murmured softly. Birds stirred, their faint calls carried on a gentle breeze. Reeds along the banks of the Nile swayed lightly, brushing together in hushed, continuous motion. Everything unfolded gradually, each moment a quiet note in the palace's unhurried symphony. Outside, the Nile reflected the soft glow of dawn. Boats, long at rest during the night, began to move slowly with the gentle current. Fishermen guided their oars with deliberate, unhurried strokes. Water rippled gently, carrying reflections of the awakening sky in soft, shifting patterns. Occasionally, a fish broke the surface with a small, quiet splash, and reeds swayed lazily in the faint morning breeze. The river, ever patient, moved in its gentle, measured rhythm, echoing the calm pulse of life throughout the palace. In the gardens, dew glimmered faintly on leaves and petals. Flowers released a delicate fragrance, mingling with the earthy scent of stone and soil. Bees and insects stirred slowly, moving from blossom to blossom with quiet precision. The pharaoh walked along shaded paths, noticing the soft shift of light, the gentle sway of plants, and the subtle sounds of life returning to the world. Each step was deliberate, each breath absorbed fully, allowing the senses to drink in the calm beauty of morning. Breakfast, prepared with gentle care, was simple and unhurried. Fresh bread, soft fruit, small portions of fish, and cool water were arranged thoughtfully. The pharaoh ate slowly, savoring the textures and flavors, the act itself a continuation of the morning's deliberate rhythm. Servants moved softly, attending to basins of water, adjusting cushions, and ensuring comfort, their movements harmonizing with the unfolding calm of the palace. Artisans and workers began their day with measured, deliberate motions. Potters rotated wheels slowly, shaping clay into gentle curves. Weavers guided threads through looms with careful attention. Stone carvers scraped limestone blocks with steady hands, the soft, repetitive sounds blending with the murmuring fountains, the whispering leaves, and the distant river. Each action contributed to the unbroken rhythm of palace life, creating a quiet, comforting symphony that welcomed the day without haste. The pharaoh often paused on terraces, observing the soft light reflecting across the Nile. Boats glided gently with the current. Birds moved lazily in arcs across the sky. Reeds and grasses swayed in the morning breeze. Fields beyond the palace were dotted with slow, deliberate activity, farmers tending crops, cattle moving quietly, all absorbed in their measured routines. Every detail, every motion, every sound merged into a gentle, continuous pulse that filled the palace with calm and quiet assurance. Even conversations were soft and deliberate. Words floated gently through corridors, exchanged with care and measured tone. Gestures, motions, the passing of scrolls, the adjustment of cushions, all were performed with attention, harmonizing with the rhythm of the awakening day. Every movement, every sound, every breath contributed to a seamless, soothing continuity, a slow and deliberate unfolding of morning. And so, the palace, gardens, river, and surrounding lands moved together in quiet harmony. The first light of day illuminated everything softly, without hurry or urgency. Every element, stone, water, plant, bird, and human, flowed together in unbroken calm. The pharaoh moved slowly, breathed deliberately, and observed fully, carried gently forward by the gentle, measured rhythm of dawn. As the pale light of morning spread fully across the land, the palace settled into the soft rhythm of the day. The sky was a gentle blue, touched with warm sunlight that filtered slowly through windows, terraces, and open archways. Shadows shifted gently across stone floors, playing softly among cushions, low tables, and the carefully arranged vessels of water and food. The air carried the quiet fragrance of the river, fresh earth, and faint hints of blooming flowers, blending into a steady, calm cadence. The pharaoh moved slowly, rising from cushions and stretching gently, muscles relaxing into the soft warmth of the morning. Each step was deliberate, each breath slow and measured. Attendants followed quietly, their motions careful, arranging basins of water, adjusting cushions, and preparing for the small, unhurried tasks that filled the hours before midday. The palace, though fully awake, maintained a gentle hush, every sound absorbed into the pervasive rhythm of calm. The gardens were alive with subtle motion. Flowers swayed lightly, dew glinting faintly on petals and leaves. Insects moved lazily among blossoms, and small birds hopped among the branches, their faint calls blending with the gentle murmur of fountains. The pharaoh often walked along shaded paths, observing the careful tending of plants and the soft flow of water through channels and ponds. Each detail, the sway of reeds, the shimmer of lotus petals, the sound of water, was absorbed slowly, a meditation in movement. Within the inner halls, artisans resumed their work with quiet diligence. Potters turned their wheels with deliberate care, shaping clay into gentle forms. Weavers guided threads carefully through looms, the soft friction of fibers blending with the subtle sounds of chisels shaping limestone and the faint hum of water in fountains. Every motion was precise, measured, and unhurried, contributing to the continuous, calming rhythm of palace life. Servants moved gently among the chambers, preparing small portions of food and water, adjusting cushions and replenishing supplies. Each movement was soft, each step deliberate, each sound blending seamlessly into the slow pulse of activity. Even simple tasks, pouring water into basins, shifting a rug, arranging fruit, were performed with careful attention, becoming part of the steady, quiet cadence that filled the palace. The Nile reflected the soft morning light, its surface shimmering in slow, gentle ripples. Boats glided quietly, fishermen guiding oars with careful precision. The water's rhythm echoed throughout the palace and gardens, a soothing counterpoint to the slow, deliberate work taking place within the walls. Reeds bent lazily in the light breeze, and the distant fields moved in soft, unhurried sequences, farmers tending crops, animals grazing with steady patience. Mid-morning was also a time of quiet observation for the pharaoh. Sitting on low cushions near the terrace, he would watch the gentle movements of life outside, boats drifting along the river, birds moving in slow arcs, and the subtle play of light across water and stone. Even the smallest detail, the shimmer of a leaf, the glint of sunlight on a fish, the soft murmur of distant footsteps, was noted with calm attention, each observation deepening the connection to the measured rhythm of the world. Occasionally, advisors or attendants would offer quiet reports. Their voices were low, deliberate, and soft, blending naturally with the subdued sounds of palace life. Words moved like gentle currents, absorbed into the calm environment rather than breaking it. Gestures, the passing of documents, or the adjustment of cushions were all done with slow precision, maintaining the unbroken, soothing flow of daily activity. Meals at this hour were modest and deliberate. Bread, soft cheese, small fruits, and small portions of fish were served thoughtfully. The pharaoh ate slowly, each bite deliberate, each flavor savored without a rush. Servants moved gently to replenish water and adjust cushions, their presence quiet, unobtrusive, harmonizing perfectly with the soft cadence of the morning. The palace and gardens carried on in continuous, measured rhythm. Stone floors, fountains, gardens, and terraces reflected the steady progression of time, not in urgency, but in deliberate unfolding. Every movement, every sound, every breath was absorbed into the seamless pulse of life, connecting the pharaoh and all within the palace to the gentle, unbroken flow of the world. As mid-morning deepened, the light became warmer, richer, yet still soft and calming. The Nile, gardens, and palace responded subtly to the changing day. Fountains murmured quietly, leaves swayed in gentle arcs, and the faint scent of lotus and earth mingled with the warm air. The pharaoh moved slowly through these spaces, breathing in each detail, feeling the gentle rhythm of life and the soft, continuous pulse of existence. And so the mid-morning passed, not with hurry or excitement, but with a steady, deliberate unfolding of routine. The palace, the river, the gardens, and the distant fields all moved together in harmony. Every detail, every sound, every movement became part of a seamless, soothing rhythm that carried the pharaoh and all within the palace forward in calm, measured serenity. Late morning settled softly over the palace. The sunlight, now climbing higher in the sky, spilled across terraces, halls, and gardens in warm, golden streams. The air carried a faint warmth, gentle rather than overwhelming, mingling with the subtle scents of water, stone, and blossoming flowers. Every corner of the palace glowed softly, and shadows, long and delicate, shifted imperceptibly across floors and walls. The pharaoh moved through the palace with calm deliberation. Each step was slow, measured, and purposeful, allowing every motion to be absorbed into the gentle rhythm of the morning. Cushions were adjusted, basins of water refreshed, and low tables arranged with small, simple offerings of food and drink. Servants moved softly, attending to each detail, their quiet presence harmonizing with the gentle unfolding of the day. In the gardens, flowers swayed with a faint breeze, releasing subtle fragrances into the warm air. Lotus petals glimmered in the sunlight, reflecting small points of light across the still water of ponds. Reeds along the riverbanks bent lazily, tracing gentle arcs in time with the soft murmur of the Nile. The distant fields beyond the palace displayed slow, deliberate movement, farmers tending crops, animals grazing with quiet patience, and occasional birds moving lazily through the pale sky. The pharaoh often paused to observe these details, each one absorbed fully into awareness. The gentle ripple of water, the shimmer of a leaf, the movement of a small insect, all became part of a meditative rhythm, a continuous current of calm that flowed through the palace and into the mind. Breathing was slow and steady, each inhale and exhale harmonizing with the natural cadence of the world outside. Late morning was also a time for quiet ritual. Small gestures, performed with deliberate care, marked the continuity of palace life. The pharaoh arranged small offerings of fruit and bread, poured water into basins, and adjusted cushions and mats. Each movement was intentional, gentle, and unhurried, carried out in harmony with the soft sounds of water, the faint murmur of animals, and the whispering breeze through the gardens. Every detail, however small, was observed with calm attention, deepening the sense of order and serenity. Artisans continued their work in measured, deliberate motions. Potters shaped clay with slow precision, each rotation of the wheel producing smooth, unbroken curves. Weavers guided threads through looms with gentle focus, their fingers tracing familiar patterns in soft, continuous rhythm. Stone carvers pressed chisels against limestone, scraping away slowly, each sound absorbed into the soft hum of palace life. Every motion, every sound, every breath blended into a continuous, soothing flow that defined the day. Outside, the gardens and river remained in gentle motion. Leaves swayed lazily, water rippled softly, and distant animals grazed quietly. The sky was a soft, pale blue, carrying the warmth of the morning without urgency. The palace itself seemed to pause in this light, embracing a slow, deliberate rhythm, a time for reflection, observation, and gentle preparation for rest. And so the late morning unfolded, calm and unhurried. The pharaoh, the servants, the artisans, and the world outside moved together in quiet, measured harmony. Each breath, each motion, each sound was absorbed fully into the seamless rhythm of palace life. Time flowed gently, deliberately, and without rush, carrying everything forward in a continuous, soothing current of calm and peace.
As the sun reached its highest point, the palace settled into a calm, gentle pause. The air was warm but soft, carrying the faint scent of water, stone, and flowering plants from the gardens. Shadows were short and subtle, falling delicately across floors, terraces, and cushions. Every corner of the palace seemed to exhale slowly, embracing the quiet rhythm of midday, a deliberate pause between activity and rest. The pharaoh lay upon soft cushions in a private chamber, body relaxed and breathing slow and measured. Eyes closed, he felt the gentle warmth of the sun through open windows and shaded terraces. Each breath was absorbed fully, each heartbeat steady and unhurried, blending with the soft, continuous rhythm of the palace and the gardens beyond. The world seemed to soften, the pulse of life quieted, and every detail became part of a gentle, meditative awareness. Servants moved quietly in the surrounding chambers, attending to small, unobtrusive tasks. Basins of water were refreshed, cushions adjusted, and small trays of food or drink placed thoughtfully nearby. Every movement was deliberate, each step soft, each gesture careful, absorbed seamlessly into the quiet atmosphere.
Even the faintest clink of ceramic or ripple of water seemed to harmonize with the slow, steady cadence of midday calm. In the gardens, flowers swayed gently in the light breeze. Lotus petals reflected the sun in soft glimmers, dew fading slowly as warmth increased. Reeds bent with gentle arcs along the riverbank, and small birds moved lazily through the trees, their faint calls blending with the subtle murmur of the Nile. The river itself flowed steadily, carrying reflections of the bright sky, the gentle movement of boats, and the quiet stirrings of distant fields. Each ripple, each sound, each motion became part of the seamless, soothing rhythm of life at midday. Artisans and workers observed a similar quietude. Potters paused for rest, leaving wheels still for a short while. Weavers leaned back from their looms, hands folded gently or adjusting threads with slow care. Stone carvers set aside chisels, stretching lightly, the faint scratches and taps of their work replaced by soft, deliberate pauses. Each motion, each breath, each sound blended into the steady, comforting cadence of the palace at midday. During this time, the pharaoh often reflected quietly. Thoughts moved slowly, like gentle currents along the river. The murmur of water, the faint rustle of leaves, the distant calls of birds, and the soft movement of attendants all contributed to a feeling of continuous, measured calm. Each moment was absorbed fully, without urgency, without interruption. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the world beyond existed together in perfect, gentle harmony. Food taken during this time was modest and simple. Fresh bread, soft cheese, ripe fruit, and cool water were consumed slowly, each bite deliberate, each sip measured. The act of eating became part of the unbroken rhythm, each sensation, texture, taste, temperature absorbed into the calming awareness of the day. Servants moved quietly, attending to basins, cushions, and small trays, their presence unobtrusive yet deliberate, maintaining the flow of gentle order. Even the smallest details were observed with attention: the soft sway of a reed, the faint glimmer of a fish in the river, the subtle fragrance of flowers, all were noticed and appreciated with deliberate calm. Each sensory element deepened the continuity of the palace's rhythm, creating a gentle, restorative atmosphere that carried the body and mind forward in gentle, unbroken serenity. The sun, warm but not harsh, illuminated the palace with a soft, steady light. Shadows shifted imperceptibly, moving in slow arcs across walls and floors. The river reflected the brightness with gentle glimmers. Birds and insects moved lazily, their faint sounds blending into the steady, unhurried pulse of life. Every motion, every sound, every breath was absorbed fully into the calm, seamless flow of existence at midday. And so the palace rested, fully and deliberately. The pharaoh lay on cushions, breathing with slow attention, while the gardens, the river, the artisans, and the attendants all moved within the gentle, measured cadence of the day. Time itself seemed softened, stretched, and absorbed into the slow, continuous rhythm of palace life. Every element of the world, near and far, flowed together seamlessly, creating a profound, restorative calm that carried the body and mind forward in gentle, unbroken serenity.
As the sun began its slow descent from its zenith, the palace stirred gently from the quietude of midday. The air, still warm, carried a subtle freshness, mingled with the lingering scents of water, stone, and the gardens. Shadows lengthened gradually, stretching across floors, terraces, and cushions, softening the bright light
into gentle hues of gold and amber. The palace moved with careful deliberation, as though it were awakening slowly, without haste, into the quiet rhythm of the afternoon. The pharaoh rose from the soft cushions where he had rested. Each movement was deliberate, measured, and unhurried. Breathing remained steady, each inhale and exhale absorbed fully, harmonizing with the slow, continuous pulse of the palace. Servants moved quietly beside him, adjusting cushions, replenishing water, and arranging small trays of fruit or bread with gentle care. Every step, every gesture was soft, deliberate, and absorbed into the overarching calm of the afternoon. In the gardens, light shifted subtly, highlighting the gentle curves of leaves, the shimmer of water in ponds, and the delicate glint of lotus petals. Birds moved slowly among branches, and insects stirred with quiet diligence, each motion almost imperceptible, yet part of the continuous flow of life. The Nile reflected the soft, descending light, ripples catching the faint glow of the sun in gentle, flowing patterns. Boats drifted slowly along the river, oars moving with patient rhythm, creating subtle sounds that mingled naturally with the ambient quiet of palace and garden. Artisans resumed their work with careful attention. Potters turned wheels slowly, shaping clay into smooth, unbroken forms. Weavers guided threads through looms with deliberate precision, fingers tracing familiar patterns in measured motions. Stone carvers scraped limestone carefully, each sound absorbed into the soft hum of palace life. Every action, no matter how small, was performed with patience and mindfulness, contributing to the seamless rhythm that filled the palace and gardens. Attendants moved quietly among the chambers, refreshing basins of water, adjusting cushions, and arranging low tables for tea or light snacks. Even the smallest tasks, pouring water, moving a tray, adjusting a mat, were performed with calm intention, their quiet movements blending seamlessly into the unbroken cadence of afternoon life. The palace itself seemed to breathe softly, each corner, each stone, each surface participating in the slow, deliberate unfolding of the day. The pharaoh often paused on terraces to observe the gentle progression of activity outside. Reeds along the riverbanks swayed lazily in the faint breeze. Fields beyond the palace were alive with slow, deliberate motion, farmers tending crops, animals grazing, and distant birds moving carefully through the sky. Each observation was absorbed fully, a meditation in sight, sound, and scent. The pulse of the world outside harmonized perfectly with the steady, unhurried rhythm of the palace within. Mid-afternoon meals were modest and deliberate. Fresh fruit, small portions of bread, soft cheese, and cool water were arranged thoughtfully. The pharaoh ate slowly, savoring each bite, allowing every flavor and texture to be absorbed fully. Servants moved quietly, replenishing water and adjusting cushions, their soft steps and gentle movements blending into the smooth cadence of afternoon life. Every moment became part of the continuous, soothing rhythm that carried the palace through the afternoon. Light shifted gradually as the sun descended further. Shadows lengthened, stretching softly across walls, floors, and gardens. The river caught the warm hues, glinting gently in slow-moving patterns. Flowers swayed lightly, releasing subtle fragrances that mingled with the warm, earthy scent of stone and soil. The palace existed in perfect harmony with the world beyond, every motion, every sound, every breath absorbed into the seamless, meditative flow of life. Even conversations were soft and measured. Words floated gently through corridors, spoken with calm attention and deliberate care. Gestures, adjustments of cushions, the passing of a tray, each motion harmonized with the natural cadence of the palace, contributing to the unbroken, gently rhythm that defined the late afternoon. And so the gradual return to activity unfolded, calm and deliberate. The pharaoh, servants, artisans, gardens, and river all moved together in quiet, measured harmony. Every sound, every movement, every breath was absorbed fully into the continuous pulse of palace life. Time stretched softly, absorbed into the rhythm of the day, carrying the palace gently forward toward the approaching evening in unbroken serenity. As the afternoon slowly waned, the palace began to take on the gentle hues of evening. Sunlight, warm and mellow, drifted at a low angle, casting long, soft shadows across stone floors, terraces, and gardens. The air cooled slightly, carrying the faint, comforting sense of water, flowers, and the stone that had absorbed the sun's heat throughout the day. Every corner of the palace seemed to sigh softly, settling into the calm, deliberate rhythm of approaching evening. The pharaoh moved quietly along shaded corridors and open terraces, each step slow and intentional. Breaths were steady, deliberate, and absorbing, blending with the quiet murmur of the palace. Servants moved alongside him in soft, measured motions, replenishing basins of water, arranging low tables with light refreshments, and adjusting cushions for comfort. Every motion, every gesture was absorbed into the continuous, gentle cadence of life that filled the palace. In the gardens, the light shifted slowly, illuminating leaves, petals, and water in soft, warm hues. Lotus blossoms reflected the fading sunlight in delicate glimmers, while reeds along the Nile swayed gently in a quiet breeze. Birds moved slowly among the branches, and insects stirred with deliberate motion. The river carried the last golden reflections of the sun, moving steadily, rippling softly, and harmonizing with the faint, measured sounds of the palace and gardens. Artisans continued their work with quiet attention. Potters rotated their wheels slowly, shaping clay with careful precision. Weavers guided threads through looms with soft, deliberate motions. Stone carvers scraped limestone gently, each sound blending into the subtle symphony of activity. Even the smallest actions were performed with mindful care, contributing to the unbroken rhythm that filled the palace with gentle, soothing life. As the light deepened into warm amber, the palace prepared for the quieter hours ahead. Cushions were adjusted, rugs smoothed, basins refreshed, and small offerings arranged thoughtfully. The pharaoh paused to observe the subtle movements of the world outside, reeds swaying along the river, boats drifting slowly in the fading light, birds moving with deliberate care, and the distant fields glowing softly in the evening sun. Every observation deepened the sense of calm, absorbing body and mind into the gentle flow of the day's close. Meals were simple and deliberate, taken with soft attention. Bread, soft fruit, small portions of fish or cheese, and cool water were arranged carefully and consumed slowly. Each bite, each sip was absorbed fully, becoming part of the seamless rhythm of palace life. Servants moved quietly, adjusting cushions or replenishing basins, their presence gentle and unhurried, harmonizing perfectly with the calm unfolding of evening. The river reflected the deepening light with warm, shifting glimmers. Boats moved lazily, oars dipping softly into the water. Reeds bent gracefully with the faint breeze, and the subtle hum of insects blended with the distant calls of birds settling for the night. Every sound, every movement, every subtle shift in light became part of the continuous, soothing flow that filled the palace and gardens. Even conversation at this hour was measured and quiet. Words were spoken softly, gestures deliberate and unobtrusive, all blending into the steady cadence of the approaching night. The palace seemed to breathe in harmony with the river, gardens, and distant fields, every element moving together in unbroken calm. As the sun descended further, the pharaoh moved to quiet spaces for reflection. Eyes closed or gazing gently across gardens and river, they absorbed the subtle interplay of light and shadow, the soft pulse of water, and the delicate sounds of life winding toward evening. Breathing remained slow and steady, each inhale and exhale aligning with the serene rhythm of the palace. And so the approach of evening unfolded, soft, deliberate, and unhurried. The palace, gardens, river, and distant lands moved together in gentle harmony. Every motion, every sound, every breath was absorbed fully into the seamless rhythm of life. The world itself seemed to pause, stretching time into quiet, measured continuity, carrying the pharaoh and all within the palace forward into the calm, restorative hours of twilight.
As the sun dipped below the horizon, the palace was bathed in the soft, muted glow of twilight. Shadows lengthened and deepened, stretching slowly across floors, walls, and terraces. The air cooled gently, carrying the faint, comforting sense of river water, stone warmed from the day, and flowers settling into the calm of night. Everything seemed hushed, as if the palace itself had exhaled, embracing the gentle rhythm of the approaching evening. The pharaoh moved slowly through the halls and terraces, each step deliberate, measured, and unhurried. Breathing remained calm and steady, each inhale and exhale merging naturally with the quiet pulse of the palace. Servants moved quietly alongside, replenishing basins of water, adjusting cushions, and arranging small offerings of fruit or bread with careful attention. Every gesture, every motion was absorbed seamlessly into the continuous, gentle cadence that now defined the palace. In the gardens, the last traces of sunlight shimmered on the lotus flowers and on the surface of the Nile. Reeds swayed slowly in the light evening breeze. Birds settled in the trees, moving with deliberate care, while insects stirred gently among blossoms, their quiet hum blending softly with the murmur of the river. The water reflected the fading sky in gentle, shifting ripples, carrying the slow, steady rhythm of life through the gardens and into the palace. Artisans began to wind down their work. Potters paused, leaving wheels still, their hands resting for a moment. Weavers guided their fingers carefully through the last threads, finishing patterns with deliberate, gentle attention. Stone carvers set aside chisels, stretching slowly and deliberately, their quiet movements absorbed into the soft hum of palace life. Every action, no matter how small, was performed with care, harmonizing with the unbroken rhythm of the evening. Light shifted gradually from warm amber to deep, soft blues, enveloping the palace in a tranquil, almost meditative calm. Cushions were fluffed and arranged, rugs smoothed, and low tables refreshed with basins of water and light snacks.
The pharaoh paused on terraces or within shaded halls, observing the gentle transitions outside, the river's faint shimmer, the slow sway of reeds, and the soft movement of small animals in the distant fields. Every observation deepened the quiet awareness, absorbing body and mind into the evening's calm. Even meals taken at this hour were simple, deliberate, and slow. Soft bread, fruit, small portions of cheese or fish, and cool water were served with gentle care. Each bite and sip was absorbed fully, becoming part of the seamless rhythm of life that filled the palace. Servants moved quietly, adjusting cushions and replenishing water, their soft presence blending unobtrusively into the steady cadence of the evening. The first night sounds began to return. Distant calls of nocturnal birds echoed faintly across the gardens and river. Insects hummed softly, creating a delicate, continuous backdrop to the quiet movements within the palace. The Nile rippled gently, carrying reflections of the fading sky in slow, undisturbed patterns. Every sound, every motion, and every faint whisper of wind became part of the gentle, soothing current that filled the palace with calm. Even conversations, when they occurred, were soft and deliberate. Words drifted gently through corridors, spoken with care, blending into the measured rhythm of life. Gestures, adjustments of cushions, and the passing of small objects all harmonized with the soft pulse of twilight. The palace itself seemed to breathe in time with the river, gardens, and distant fields, every element moving in unbroken calm. As the pharaoh prepared for the approaching night, he moved with deliberate slowness. Eyes closed or gazing softly across terraces and gardens, he observed the subtle interplay of fading light, the gentle sway of plants, and the quiet return of nocturnal life. Breathing remained steady, each inhale and exhale aligning with the serene, unhurried rhythm of the evening. And so, twilight deepened, soft and deliberate. The palace, gardens, river, and distant lands moved together in gentle harmony. Every movement, every sound, every breath was absorbed fully into the continuous, soothing rhythm of life. Time stretched, softened, and was absorbed into the unbroken flow of existence, carrying the pharaoh and all within the palace gently forward into the calm, restorative hours of night. Night settled gently over the palace. The sky deepened into soft indigo, dotted faintly with early stars that shimmered with a quiet, steady light. A gentle breeze moved through open terraces and gardens, carrying the faint, comforting sense of cool water, stone, and night-blooming flowers. Shadows softened, merging with the dim glow of lanterns placed carefully along corridors, halls, and gardens. The palace exhaled into stillness, embracing the calm rhythm of night. The pharaoh moved slowly, each step deliberate and measured. Breathing remained steady, each inhale and exhale absorbed fully, harmonizing with the quiet pulse of the palace. Servants followed softly, adjusting cushions, replenishing basins of water, and arranging small trays with gentle care. Lanterns flickered lightly, casting warm, gentle shadows across floors and walls, their movement almost imperceptible. Every gesture, every motion, every breath became part of the seamless flow of night. In the gardens, The soft rustle of leaves and the faint hum of insects created a subtle, continuous rhythm. Lotus blossoms reflected the lantern light in gentle glimmers across the surface of still water. Reeds along the river bent lazily with the night breeze, and distant fields appeared muted and soft under the pale glow of the stars. The Nile carried reflections of lanterns and moonlight rippling slowly, harmonizing with the palace's quiet movements and the soft return of nocturnal life. Artisans had finished their work for the day, their hands resting, their tools set aside. Even in stillness, their spaces were arranged with care. Potters had left wheels motionless, weavers paused at their looms, and stone carvers rested chisels beside smooth stone. Every area, every tool, every corner of the palace seemed to breathe gently, contributing to the quiet, continuous pulse of night. Servants moved with careful deliberation, replenishing water, adjusting cushions, and arranging low tables for comfort. Their soft steps were absorbed by stone floors, carpets, and cushions, merging into the rhythm of calm. Even the faintest sounds, the drip of water, the rustle of cloth, the soft shifting of a tray, blended seamlessly with the subtle hum of night, creating a gentle, meditative soundscape. The pharaoh often paused near a terrace, observing the soft, muted world outside. The river glimmered faintly under the light of early stars, boats drifting slowly with quiet oarsmen, and reeds swayed lazily along the banks. Insects moved carefully among flowers, and distant birds called softly in the night. Each observation was absorbed fully, each sensation, sight, sound, smell, becoming part of the continuous, restorative rhythm of palace life. Even meals at this hour were simple, gentle, and unhurried. Small portions of bread, fruit, cheese, and cool water were arranged with quiet care. Each bite was deliberate, each sip measured, absorbed fully into the rhythm of night. Servants moved softly, replenishing water, adjusting cushions, and arranging duties with quiet attention. Every action harmonized perfectly with the calm, deliberate cadence that filled the palace after sunset. Lanterns flickered and glowed, casting soft, warm light across halls and gardens. Shadows shifted imperceptibly, merging with the natural dimness of night. The palace itself seemed to breathe in time with the river, gardens, and distant fields. Every movement, every sound, every breath became part of a gentle, continuous current that carried the pharaoh and all within the palace toward the deeper hours of night. And so early night unfolded, soft, deliberate, and unhurried. The palace, gardens, river, and distant lands moved together in quiet harmony. Time itself seemed to stretch, softened and absorbed into the gentle flow of existence. Every element of the world, near and far, merged into a seamless, soothing rhythm, carrying the pharaoh and all within the palace gently into the calm, restorative hours of nocturnal stillness. Deep night settled fully over the palace, wrapping every corridor, terrace, and garden in a quiet velvet darkness. Lanterns glowed faintly, their light warm and gentle, casting long, soft shadows that shifted imperceptibly across stone floors and walls. The air was cool and still, carrying faint scents of water, earth, and night-blooming flowers. Every sound was softened, absorbed into the gentle, continuous rhythm of night. The pharaoh lay upon cushions, fully resting, breathing slow, steady, and measured. Each inhale and exhale seemed to merge with the quiet pulse of the palace, the soft flow of the river, and the gentle stirrings of the gardens. His body relaxed completely, muscles softened, and the rhythm of sleep began to take hold. The world around him moved quietly, harmonizing with the slow, deliberate cadence of deep night. Servants moved softly, almost imperceptibly, completing small, gentle tasks. Basins of water were refreshed quietly, cushions adjusted carefully, and low tables arranged with subtle care. Every movement was deliberate, each step gentle, each gesture absorbed fully into the stillness of the palace. Even the faint clink of a vessel or the whisper of cloth seemed to blend seamlessly into the meditative, calming atmosphere. In the gardens, shadows deepened under the pale starlight. Lotus flowers reflected faint glimmers of lantern and moonlight, their petals closed gently for the night. Reeds along the river swayed slowly in a faint breeze, moving in deliberate arcs. Insects hummed quietly among blossoms, birds slept, and the distant fields were softened into muted forms under the gentle glow of night. The Nile carried subtle ripples, reflecting the faint light, harmonizing with the quiet movements within the palace. Artisans rested from their work, the tools of the day set aside. Potters left wheels still, the shapes of clay cool and motionless. Weavers rested hands upon looms, and stone carvers leaned lightly against walls or stones. Every space, every tool, every surface seemed to breathe gently, contributing to the continuous, soothing pulse of deep night. Meals were finished, simple and deliberate, leaving the palace in quiet satisfaction. The pharaoh, fully at rest, was nourished and calm. Servants moved softly, replenishing only what was necessary, adjusting cushions with delicate care, and maintaining the gentle rhythm of stillness. Every step, every action, every breath harmonized perfectly with the serene cadence of night. The first slow dreams began to touch the pharaoh's mind. Thoughts drifted lazily, like clouds across a soft evening sky, moving gently, unhurriedly. Memories, images of gardens, rivers, artisans, and quiet corridors passed in soft waves. The river's reflection, the sway of reeds, and the warm glow of lanterns appeared in subtle dreamlike sequences. Each dream was absorbed fully, yet softly, merging seamlessly into the calm, continuous rhythm of the palace. Lanterns flickered gently, casting soft, shifting light. Shadows elongated and softened, blending with the darkness and the muted colors of night. The palace seemed to exist in perfect harmony with the river, gardens, and distant fields. Every sound, every movement, and every breath was part of a gentle, continuous flow, guiding the pharaoh and all within toward the deeper hours of sleep. Outside, the world responded to the quiet of deep night. The ripples slowly, carrying reflections of stars and lantern light. Reeds swayed with a soft, deliberate rhythm. Insects hummed in low, soothing tones, blending with the distant calls of night birds. Every element, near and far, became part of the seamless, meditative cadence that defined the night. And so, deep night unfolded fully. The palace, gardens, river, and distant lands moved together in unbroken harmony. Every motion, every sound, every breath merged into a continuous restorative rhythm. Time seemed to stretch softly, absorbed into the gentle flow of existence. The pharaoh slept peacefully, carried along by the calm, deliberate pulse of the palace, as the world itself settled into quiet, serene nocturnal stillness.
Midnight descended softly over the palace, wrapping every corridor, hall, and garden in profound, velvety quiet. Lanterns glowed faintly, their warm, steady light casting gentle, elongated shadows that seemed to drift lazily across stone floors and terraces. The air was cool and calm, carrying the subtle scent of water, stone, and night-blooming flowers. The world outside moved in slow, measured rhythm, absorbed fully into the gentle pulse of the palace at rest. The pharaoh slept deeply, breathing slow and even, his body fully softened, every muscle relaxed, every limb at ease. Dreams moved gently through his mind, drifting like soft currents along the Nile. Reflections of the river, the sway of reeds, and the faint glimmer of lotus petals appeared in quiet, unhurried waves. Each thought, each image passed without urgency, merging seamlessly into the restorative flow of deep night. Servants moved with careful discretion, attending only to necessary tasks. Basins were replenished quietly, cushions adjusted with subtle care, and low tables arranged with faint offerings for the next day. Each gesture was deliberate, each step soft and unobtrusive, absorbed entirely into the rhythm of palace stillness. Even the faintest clink of a vessel or whisper of cloth became part of the gentle, meditative current that filled every space. In the gardens, shadows deepened under the pale starlight. Lotus blossoms closed completely, reflecting faint lantern light and the glimmer of distant stars. Reeds bent gently in the quiet night breeze, moving in slow arcs. Birds slept tucked among branches, and insects hummed quietly in low, steady tones. The Nile mirrored the faint glimmer of the stars, rippling softly, its gentle movement harmonizing with the quiet pulse of palace life. Artisans rested completely. Potters left wheels motionless, the smooth forms of clay still and cool. Weavers rested their hands on looms, fingers relaxed after long days of careful work. Stone carvers leaned lightly against smooth limestone, their tools set aside. Each space, each surface, each tool seemed to exhale slowly, absorbed fully into the serene, continuous rhythm of night. Food had long been finished, simple and deliberate. Servants moved softly, replenishing only what was needed, arranging cushions and small objects with quiet attention. Every step, every motion, every breath blended seamlessly into the gentle cadence that filled the palace. The soft hum of night, combined with the deliberate calm of palace life, carried everything forward in unbroken serenity. Outside, the river moved slowly beneath starlight, carrying faint reflections that rippled gently along its surface. Reeds swayed lazily, brushing softly against the water. Insects hummed, distant birds called faintly, and the gentle breeze carried subtle scents through the gardens and corridors. Each sound, each motion, each faint shift in the night became part of a continuous restorative current that stretched through palace and river alike. Even time seemed softened. The hours passed gently, measured only by the slow movement of stars and the shifting reflections on the water. The palace, the gardens, the river, and the distant lands all moved together as one, every sound, every motion, every breath merging into the seamless, soothing rhythm of the night. Time flowed softly, absorbed into the continuous, meditative current of existence, carrying the pharaoh, the servants, and all within the palace gently forward into the deep hours of serene nocturnal stillness. And so, midnight unfolded in unbroken calm.
The palace, gardens, river, and distant fields moved together as one, every sound, every motion, every breath merging into the seamless, soothing rhythm of the night. Time flowed softly, absorbed into the continuous meditative current of existence, carrying the pharaoh, the servants, and all within the palace gently forward into the deep hours of serene nocturnal stillness. As the night deepened further, the palace settled into a hush so complete that every sound seemed softened, absorbed, and carried gently away. The river flowed steadily, moving in slow, deliberate ripples that mirrored the faint starlight. Reeds bent quietly in the whisper of a faint breeze. Insects hummed softly, blending with distant bird calls, creating a delicate, continuous symphony that filled the gardens and terraces. The world itself seemed to breathe slowly, a gentle rhythm that touched every corner of the palace. The pharaoh remained in deep sleep, breathing calm and measured. Limbs relaxed fully, body softened completely, and the pulse of life seemed to flow in unbroken harmony with the slow movements of the river and the faint, measured sounds of the night. Dreams drifted like quiet currents, carrying images of gardens, temples, and the smooth stones of corridors. Each memory, each reflection was absorbed softly, without urgency, blending seamlessly into the restorative rhythm of the pre-dawn hours. Servants moved quietly and sparingly, attending only to subtle, necessary tasks. Basins of water were replenished gently, cushions adjusted softly, and small objects arranged with careful attention. Every motion was deliberate, measured, and absorbed fully into the steady cadence of the palace at rest. Even the faintest sound, a whispered movement, a brush of cloth, a gentle clink of pottery, was absorbed seamlessly into the meditative, unbroken flow of night. In the gardens, shadows merged and softened under the deep indigo of pre-dawn. Lotus blossoms remained closed, their petals holding the faint coolness of the night. Reeds swayed in slow arcs, brushing lightly against the river. Birds had nestled quietly for sleep, and insects continued their faint, steady hum. The river reflected only a hint of fading stars, rippling gently, moving slowly, and harmonizing perfectly with the serene stillness of the palace. Artisans rested fully, tools laid aside. Potter's wheels were still, clay smooth and unshaped. Weavers' threads lay quietly on looms, fingers relaxed from hours of careful motion. Stone carvers leaned softly against walls or stone surfaces, the faint lines of their work blending into the stillness of the night. Every surface, every space, every object seemed to exhale, absorbed fully into the continuous, soothing rhythm of pre-dawn calm. Meals had long been concluded, simple and deliberate, leaving the palace in quiet contentment. Servants moved softly, replenishing only what was necessary, adjusting cushions or arranging small trays with quiet care. Every step, every gesture, every breath was absorbed fully into the continuous pulse of the palace at rest. The rhythm of life continued, unhurried and seamless, carrying the pharaoh, the attendants, and the entire palace in gentle harmony through the night. The first subtle changes in light began to touch the sky. Deep indigo slowly softened toward pale shades of gray, blending imperceptibly with the faint warmth of the approaching sun. Shadows stretched and shifted delicately across gardens and terraces, merging with lantern light that had grown even softer in the pre-dawn hours. Every detail, every movement, every sound blended naturally into the meditative cadence of palace life. The river reflected these subtle changes, carrying faint shifting patterns of light across its surface. Reeds moved gently with the quiet breeze. Insects hummed in soft, continuous tones. The palace itself seemed to exhale slowly, blending with the gentle rhythm of nature outside. Each element, river, gardens, stone, and living beings, merged in unbroken, soothing harmony. The pharaoh remained in gentle, dream-filled sleep, carried along by the steady, deliberate rhythm of pre-dawn. Each breath, each heartbeat, each subtle movement of the world beyond the palace was absorbed fully into the serene, restorative flow of life. Time seemed suspended, softened, and expanded, every instant stretching into quiet continuity. And so the pre-dawn hours unfolded, slow, deliberate, and unhurried. The palace, gardens, river, and distant lands moved together in seamless, meditative calm. Every motion, every sound, every breath merged into the continuous, soothing pulse of existence. The world itself held its breath, carrying the pharaoh and all within the palace gently, quietly, and peacefully toward the first soft light of morning.
The first light of morning arrived slowly, brushing the palace with a soft, muted glow. Pale gold and gentle amber crept across stone floors, terraces, and gardens, blending with the lingering shadows of night. The air carried a cool freshness, touched with the faint warmth of the sun's earliest rays, and the subtle scent of water, stone, and blossoms awakened gently with the day. Every surface, every corner, every element of the palace seemed to breathe softly in the delicate glow of morning. The pharaoh remained for a few moments longer in quiet sleep, cocooned in gentle cushions. Breathing slow and even, his body fully relaxed, he drifted seamlessly between dreams and wakefulness. The palace itself seemed to pause, absorbing the soft light and the quiet, measured sounds of morning as they entered gently through open terraces and windows. Servants began their careful, deliberate movement. Steps were soft and measured, each gesture gentle and intentional. Basins were refreshed quietly, low tables arranged for light meals, and cushions smoothed with subtle care. Every motion was absorbed into the calm rhythm of the palace, creating a seamless transition from the stillness of night to the gradual flow of early morning activity. Outside, the gardens stirred subtly in the early light. Lotus blossoms opened slightly, petals catching the faint glow. Reeds along the Nile bent gently in a delicate morning breeze. Birds began to move softly among branches, calling faintly, and insects hummed quietly as they started the day. The river reflected the soft light in slow, shifting ripples, harmonizing perfectly with the gentle rhythm of palace life. Artisans resumed their work gradually, each movement deliberate and measured. Potters returned to their wheels with soft, careful attention, shaping clay slowly and thoughtfully. Weavers guided threads through looms in unhurried, precise motions, fingers moving with quiet familiarity. Stone carvers took up chisels lightly, working with soft, steady taps. Every sound, every motion, every breath blended into the unbroken, meditative cadence of the early morning. The pharaoh slowly awoke, stretching limbs with measured care. Eyes opened gently to the soft glow of morning light, absorbing the calm, deliberate pulse of the palace. Each breath, each small movement was slow and intentional, harmonizing naturally with the quiet rhythm of the day's first moments. Servants moved unobtrusively around him, adjusting cushions, replenishing water,
and arranging simple offerings for breakfast, all with soft attention to detail. Breakfast was taken deliberately, in silence, and with mindful presence. Small portions of bread, soft fruit, and cool water were arranged carefully, each bite absorbed fully. The pharaoh ate slowly, savoring textures and flavors, letting each moment become part of the seamless rhythm of early morning life. Servants attended gently, replenishing only what was needed, their soft movements blending entirely into the meditative cadence of the palace. The gardens reflected the growing light with a delicate shimmer. Reeds swayed softly, water rippled quietly, and birds called intermittently, each sound subtle and measured. The river reflected the soft light in slow, shifting ripples, harmonizing perfectly with the gentle rhythm of palace life. Even conversation, when it arose, was soft, deliberate, and unhurried. Words floated gently through halls and terraces, blending seamlessly with the measured rhythm of the morning. Gestures, the movement of objects, and the careful adjustments of cushions all harmonized with the subtle cadence of early day life. The palace itself seemed to breathe slowly, in time with the river, gardens, and distant fields. Every element, plant, stone, water, and creature, participated in the quiet restorative flow of the new day. And so the first soft light of morning unfolded across the palace. Shadows shifted subtly, colors deepened, and every sound, every motion, every breath was absorbed fully into the quiet, unbroken rhythm of daily life. Time seemed gentle and expansive, stretching naturally into the measured flow of the day. The pharaoh, the palace, and all within it moved together in seamless calm, carried softly into the quiet, restorative hours of morning. As the morning light deepened, the palace came fully alive with slow, deliberate movements. Sunlight poured softly through open terraces and lattice windows, touching floors, walls, and gardens in muted golden hues. The air was warm but gentle, carrying the subtle fragrance of stone, water, and blooming flowers. Every surface seemed to glow faintly, as if absorbing the day's light with a calm, quiet patience. The pharaoh rose fully, stretching with measured care. Each motion was slow, deliberate, and full of awareness, limbs extending softly, muscles easing into the day. Breathing remained steady, deep, and relaxed, harmonizing naturally with the gentle rhythm of the palace. Eyes opened to the gardens and river beyond, reflecting on the soft sway of reeds, the shimmer of water, and the pale glimmer of lotus blossoms. The world outside moved quietly, absorbed into the slow cadence of morning. Servants moved carefully throughout the palace. Steps were measured, soft and quiet, almost floating across stone floors and cushioned corridors. Basins of water were replenished, low tables arranged with gentle care, and cushions fluffed and placed precisely for comfort. Every movement was absorbed into the seamless rhythm of the palace, each task performed with calm attention and gentle deliberation. In the gardens, the day began in subtle, measured ways. Reeds along the Nile bent slowly in the light morning breeze, while lotus petals opened gradually to the soft sunlight. Birds called softly, moving lightly among branches, and insects hummed quietly as they stirred with the growing warmth. The river reflected the light with gentle ripples, flowing steadily, carrying the quiet pulse of life through the gardens and terraces. Artisans resumed their work with calm precision. Potters shaped clay carefully, wheels turning slowly, hands guiding each form with attention and care. Weavers ran threads through looms deliberately, fingers moving softly, producing patterns with quiet consistency. Stone carvers tapped chisels gently, shaping surfaces with measured patience. Every sound, every motion, and every breath merged seamlessly into the steady, unhurried cadence of morning life. Breakfast concluded in quiet, deliberate presence. The pharaoh ate slowly, savoring each bite of soft bread, fruit, or cheese, each sip of water absorbed fully into the rhythm of the day. Servants moved gently around him, replenishing what was needed with minimal motion, ensuring that each gesture remained unobtrusive. Every action, small and deliberate, contributed to the calm flow of morning activity. The light grew gradually brighter, shifting from pale gold to warm amber, touching gardens, terraces, and distant fields. Shadows shortened softly, merging with the steady, slow rhythm of life. The palace seemed to expand gently under the sun's presence, every surface, every stone, and every garden path breathing with quiet attention to the day's unfolding. Even conversation remained soft and measured. Words floated gently through corridors, blending naturally with the subtle sounds of water, the movement of cushions, and the distant calls of birds. Gestures, the arranging of objects, and the subtle shifting of fabric all harmonized with the unbroken pulse of the palace. The pharaoh observed all quietly, fully absorbing the gentle, deliberate rhythm of life around him. And so morning continued, slow and unhurried, every movement, sound, and breath woven into a seamless, soothing pattern. The palace, gardens, river, and distant fields moved together in quiet harmony. Time stretched softly, every moment absorbed fully into the meditative cadence of daily life. The pharaoh, the attendants, and every living element of the palace were carried gently through the steady, restorative flow of morning into the calm, deliberate unfolding of the day ahead. Mid-morning unfolded gently over the palace, the sun now climbing higher, its warmth soft and inviting rather than harsh. Light filtered through latticed windows and open terraces, painting floors and walls with quiet golden hues. The air carried faint scents of river water, stone warmed by the morning sun, and the delicate fragrance of lotus and jasmine blossoms in the gardens. Every detail seemed softened, infused with calm, measured energy. The pharaoh moved slowly through the halls, observing the soft patterns of life around him. Each step was deliberate, each motion absorbed fully into the quiet rhythm of the palace. Breathing remained steady and unhurried, aligning naturally with the gentle pulse of gardens, river, and corridors. Eyes lingered on the gentle sway of reeds by the Nile, the shimmer of light on water, and the lotus petals opening fully under the sun. Every observation deepened the sense of calm, as if time itself had slowed to match the rhythm of the palace. Servants attended to their morning rituals with deliberate care. Basins of water were refreshed, small trays of fruit or bread arranged carefully, and cushions adjusted precisely for comfort. Each movement was soft, measured, and fully absorbed into the meditative flow of palace life. Even the quiet rustle of cloth or gentle tap of a tray against the floor blended seamlessly with the hum of the gardens and the river beyond. The gardens themselves seemed to awaken fully. Reeds swayed slowly with the gentle breeze, and lotus blossoms shimmered under the growing sunlight. Birds moved softly among branches, calling in low, measured tones, while insects hummed quietly in a steady rhythm. The Nile flowed with calm precision, carrying reflections of the soft morning light in slow, deliberate ripples. The entire scene moved together in quiet harmony, each detail absorbed into the gentle, unhurried flow of mid-morning. Artisans resumed their work with care, fingers moving with quiet precision. Potters shaped clay slowly, hands guiding every curve with deliberate attention. Weavers threaded looms with steady rhythmic movements, producing intricate patterns without haste. Stone carvers tapped chisels gently against limestone, each sound absorbed into the soft, continuous pulse of the palace. Every motion, every sound, and every breath blended fully into the unbroken rhythm of mid-morning. The pharaoh observed the palace and gardens with calm attention, taking in the soft patterns of daily life. Each detail, the flow of water, the movement of reeds, the gentle shimmer of sunlight, was absorbed fully, becoming part of a seamless, soothing awareness. Servants moved quietly, attending to every task with soft precision, ensuring that each gesture harmonized perfectly with the palace's deliberate rhythm. Even the smallest actions were performed with care and patience. The gentle brushing of cushions, the quiet arranging of fruit or bread, and the careful adjustment of low tables all contributed to the serene flow of the morning hours. Every step, every motion, and every breath merged naturally into the continuous restorative cadence of palace life. As mid-morning deepened, the light became warmer and more evenly spread, touching gardens, corridors, terraces, and distant fields. Shadows shifted softly, merging with the glow of the sun. The river reflected the growing warmth, carrying slow ripples that harmonized with the gentle hum of life in the palace and gardens. Every element, stone, water, plant, and living being, moved together in deliberate, quiet harmony. And so, mid-morning unfolded, slow and deliberate, every motion, every sound, and every breath absorbed fully into the continuous meditative rhythm of the palace. Time stretched softly, each moment carrying the pharaoh, servants, and gardens gently forward, woven into the unbroken, soothing pulse of daily life. The world itself moved in quiet harmony, calm and restorative, carrying all within the palace toward the gentle unfolding of the day ahead.
As the late morning light settled fully across the palace, every shadow softened, every surface warmed with the gentle glow of the sun. The gardens lay tranquil, the lotus petals resting in perfect quiet, reeds swaying softly with a calm breeze. The river moved slowly, reflecting the serene light, carrying its quiet pulse across distant fields and into the horizon. The pharaoh, having moved through his calm morning rituals, rested once more upon cushions, eyes closed, breathing slow, measured, and even. Servants moved softly around him, attending with gentle care, yet their presence was absorbed entirely into the quiet harmony of the palace. Every gesture, every movement, every breath blended seamlessly into the rhythm of life, uninterrupted and unhurried. The palace exhaled with the day, each hall, corridor, and terrace resting in its natural, deliberate calm. Outside, birds paused, insects hummed faintly, and the distant river carried reflections of the soft morning light in a gentle, continuous flow. Even time itself seemed to stretch, slowed to match the soothing pulse of the palace and its gardens. And so the day settled quietly, carrying the pharaoh, the servants, and all within the palace into unbroken calm. Every detail, the shimmer of water, the sway of reeds, the soft warmth of sunlight, and the subtle presence of life was absorbed into the gentle, meditative rhythm of existence. The world moved in delicate harmony. The palace, gardens, river,
and distant lands flowed together in quiet, deliberate unison. Every sound, every motion, every breath blended naturally into the seamless, restorative cadence of life. And there, in that soft, uninterrupted stillness, the palace rested, the pharaoh rested, and the world itself exhaled into calm. The day continued its quiet unfolding, uninterrupted and serene, carrying all within its gentle, measured current. Everything faded gently into peace, the soft pulse of life continuing, calm and unhurried, as if cradled forever in the quiet rhythm of the Nile. The palace slept, the gardens slept, and the world, in its gentle, endless motion, rested quietly, softly, and completely.